Welcome everyone to the March the 1st, 2017 special board meeting. I'd like to call it to order, and I'm going to ask Director Sliwa if you will do a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. This is our roll call for our special meeting for 01 March 2017. Trustee Armour.
Present.
First Vice Chair Karkner.
Present.
Trustee Cram.
Present.
Trustee Garrow. Trustee Wendy McPherson. Trustee Bill McPherson.
Present.
Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee Richards. Trustee Swan. Student Trustee Grace Marr.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director. I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the special board meeting agenda of March the 1st, 2017. Moved by Trustee Karkner, seconded by Trustee John McAllister. And I'll ask you to just cast your votes on the screen so we make sure that's working. Trustee Armour? In favor? And Trustee Garrow? Trustee Wendy McPherson? Thank you very much. And Trustee Susan Richards? Okay, and Trustee Swan's not here. Okay, thank you. That carries. Do I have any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing there are none, I want to, before we move on, just first I'd like to welcome everyone to being here tonight. I know that, again, this is a very difficult time for everyone that's in the audience. And as I've said on a few occasions, this is an extremely difficult time for a board. This is not, these are not conversations that we want to be into, because none of us really come into this role to be in these positions, but it's part of our responsibility and it's part of the job that we have to do. You know, having these discussions are not easy, but in order to do due diligence and take the role of a trustee, take that responsibility on, these discussions have to take place. So when we have a meeting such as this and we have delegations, we as a board have a code of conduct or a way that we expect that every meeting will happen. And in that, when that happens, really what we expect is that the meeting is civil, polite, that everyone is treated with respect. Everyone has an opinion, and everyone has a right to an opinion. And it may not necessarily agree with your opinion, but we certainly would never stop anyone from having their own opinion. And I think that's really important. The other thing is that tonight you will be having delegations come forward, and as you come forward, I have to be very strict in terms of the time. Because I mean, we have 11 presentations tonight. Hi, Trustee Swan. Don't mean to point you out, but thank you. 11 delegations tonight and 11 delegations tomorrow night. And for us to be able to get through those in the amount of time that we have, it's important that we stay very firm on the timelines. One thing I do want you to understand and appreciate is that all of the trustees have seen your PowerPoints or your presentations, and they have seen your speaking notes. We have those things before us. So if by some chance you don't get through your presentation and I ask you to stop, please know that we have seen the entire report. So if you're sitting there with X number of slides and you didn't get through them all, we certainly can see them, and we will. And so the trustees are, all of the information that came out of the accommodation review, everything that has happened prior to now, we have been privy to, and we have seen it. It's part of our thinking, it's part of what we're doing, and as I've repeated many times, we don't make the decision until March the 23rd. We won't make that decision until the trustees are extremely well informed. Tonight is one of those examples, one of those parts of the process where we have an opportunity to gain more information. And that's what this is about. So I'm asking, when you come up and you do your presentations, that we stick to the timelines, and I know, Derek, you've got a timer, so there'll be a chance to see that. After the 10 minutes, there'll be an opportunity for trustees, and I'm going to hold the trustees firm to this as well. You have 10 minutes to ask questions for clarity or for understanding. On the 23rd of March, that's the opportunity when the trustees are going to be having a huge dialogue. There's going to be a lot of conversation. There's going to be a lot of conversation around questions and concerns that we have that came out of the final report. There may be some amendments. There'll be conversations around that as well. But I can guarantee you on the March the 23rd, there will be a lot of conversation. And the conversation will be from the information that has been gathered throughout the entire process. So saying that, I think we're ready to begin with our first delegation. The one thing I am going to ask, and I know again that there's a lot of emotion in the room, I would ask you to try not to get involved in cheering and clapping and stomping your feet, and I understand that, but this is a board meeting for us, and I make the same comment if we were in the boardroom, that the people that are in the gallery, I ask you to be respectful. This is our meeting, and allow us to conduct the meeting as respectfully as we can. So if I do ask you not to do something, you'll know why I'm doing that. Okay, so our delegations, we're going to begin with our first delegation, and this is entitled Right School, Right Place, Oxford on the Rideau, and I'm going to ask Sean Berube to come forward. Hi, Sean.
Good evening to the Board of Trustees, the senior staff, and everyone here in attendance. My name is Sean Berube, and I'm through you, Chair. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Oxford on Rideau Public School. Although I may be presenting at the podium by myself, I do not stand alone. I represent a passionate group of concerned and invested parents, teachers, community members who all know how much this school means and has meant to their families and to the community, as well as the municipality of North Grenville. The recommendations in the final report create new concerns for the students of Oxford and the community. Issues include an imbalanced elimination of underutilized space suggested in the final report, with only a fraction of the space being consolidated as initially recommended. The recommendation of dual track remains for the two Kemptville schools, although some concern and additional consultation on the issue was requested in the ARC process. The bigger issue now is that the closing date for Oxford on Rideau is essentially to be determined. Although it is stated as making space available, we feel that it will create further uncertainty with the learning environment for our students. We also feel that space may never become available. I would like to summarize why we as a community feel the board needs this school into the future. The incredible growth trend and prediction of growth for years to come within this municipality is one of the biggest reasons it'll be necessary for the board to keep Oxford on Rideau open. In the ARC presentations, it was a hot topic for our presenters, as well as the municipality themselves. Since those presentations, census data has been released, and it shows that the community of North Grenville has grown 9.1% since 2011. This is like no other area within the board, and it's stated as the fastest growing community in Eastern Ontario, and it's living up to it. To put this into comparison, the balance of the Leeds and Grenville area had a marginal loss in population. We also took some data from the other areas within the board, and it shows a decline in population by 2.4% in Brockville to a growth of 4.6% in Lanark County. This is still half the growth that North Grenville saw in that same time period. To further analyze how the impact of the growth in our area stands against the rest of the board, this slide represents the schools which have now been removed from the initial staff report closure list. You can clearly see that the current state of Oxford is comparable to the averages from the schools no longer being considered. What does jump out, though, is the feeder group utilization comparison and the growth comparison. North Grenville is thriving. This isn't a secret. If Oxford-on-Rideau were to close, we would have 1,099 elementary students with only 1,077 teachable elementary spaces within our feeder group. Adding to this, North Grenville District High School students currently occupy some of those spaces, and if those students were to leave, there will still not be enough room for all of the Oxford students without the use of portables. It is clear within the final report that portables are no longer considered part of the board's plan for students. How can we believe there will ever be space? We would also like to note that the initial staff report states that the decline in elementary pupils has stabilized. Compound this with the growth of our area, and it is hard to believe that the plan for this community should involve closing any school or waiting for space. It also appears that past enrollment numbers within this area have created some difficulty for the board in relation to capital projects. This very building we stand in tonight opened its doors over capacity in 2012, and the new Kemptville Public School is on the same track, and it will open over capacity. This shows that this area is doing better than any other area in the board. We feel that these factors will create uncertainty of being able to find a home for these students while they attend a school that has a closure looming. This brings me to our other concern with this recommendation. Is a pending school closure truly a student's first recommendation? This places current students and possible future students waiting in limbo. How do we as parents commit our children to more school years in Oxford with the dreaded thought of closure? We want to root our children within a building where they can become comfortable and focused, capable of learning, without the distraction of switching schools. This is the type of plan that will only force the doors of Oxford-on-Rideau to close, space or no space. This recommendation also questions what type of education and learning environment will be offered to these children if they do remain in Oxford. Our impression is that little funding would be placed into a school that is scheduled for closure, and we would also be fearful of the mindset of parents, peers, and the staff who may feel like we are just going through the motions. This does not invite an appropriate learning environment. This cannot be deemed a student's first approach. The timelines provided within this recommendation are open-ended, and this is what creates the concern. It creates the doubt. As a collective group, let's not create doubt. Let's create positive change. The numbers within this area and feeder groups speak for themselves. We ask the Board of Trustees to remove Oxford-on-Rideau Public School from the closure list and start to work in the coming years to increase the enrollment. We do not want to just be removed from a closure list. We want and deserve equal opportunities to become a viable school. Many of these options were addressed in the ARC process. We have many willing and capable parents, teachers, students that have a passion to create change together. The answer to this issue should not be a drastic change with an immediate impact. It should be considered that small, incremental changes with continual improvement is the best path to a successful business for the board and, more importantly, for the education of our students. This is the path to success. Kemptville Public School has been using 2 separate buildings with multiple portables while Oxford loses students year after year due to lack of programming and daycare options. This did not happen overnight. It was stated in the initial staff report that funding will not be granted for additions or rebuilds when there is an underutilized space in the area. Our feeder group has an elementary school at 220% utilization, which received funding, while Oxford-on-Rideau remained underutilized. Through you, Chair, we ask the Board of Trustees to not lose sight that it is encouraged by the Ministry of Education that balancing over and underutilized space should be considered before closures. This chart represents the students which currently live within the Oxford-on-Rideau Public School boundary, as well as how many students actually attend the school. These numbers show there are more students that attend another school within the feeder group compared to actually attending Oxford. 98 students have left for French immersion, and 38 students are crossing boundaries for other reasons. With these numbers, this school has the capability to achieve at least 90% utilization without negatively impacting the other schools in the feeder group. We understood and respected the initial position of the Upper Canada District School Board. There's no question that there is an issue with empty pupil spaces. We still felt our school's position was above the initial consolidation. This is a difficult spot for the Board of Trustees as well. The senior staff have submitted for capital priorities funding plan, and in our opinion, this has created pressure on the trustees to take the context of the final report, which supports the closure of 6 of the 8 Category 1 schools, all to aid in the possible funding of additions and rebuilds. While the context of the initial report is reducing underutilized space. All this needs to be weighed against the likelihood of receiving that funding after these schools have closed their doors. It is difficult to accept that the senior staff have been put in a spot where they would need to make these arrangements based on the ministry feedback, but in return, this is named schools for closure before the ARC process was completed. Naming schools for closure has occurred while groups of people are attempting to create alternate options to keep these schools open. A meaningless effort to convince the senior staff to reconsider the initial recommendation before the final report was completed. Through you, Chair, we ask the Board of Trustees to consider how this comes across to the people who trusted and put faith into this process. To summarize our position, we truly feel that this situation is not a desperate plea to save a school. This is a plea to save a school where it makes sense to support the board with an area that will be over capacity due to tight margins proposed on top of projected growth. I got 2 paragraphs left. There are too many unknowns surrounding this final recommendation that will create unnecessary strain on our student staff within the feeder group as well as the board. It is unimaginable that 10,000 empty spaces in this board, that the 245 within North Grenville are considered top of the list. We truly believe that all this information provided in the ARC process, in combination with our final delegations, warrants the removal of Oxford-on-Rideau from the list of closures. We only expect to be treated fairly, and it should be clear that we have provided the appropriate information to support the need and importance of keeping Oxford-on-Rideau Public School open. Through you, Chair, we look forward to not just keeping a school open, but to change the path of a school for the future of the students that succeed our own children. Thank you for your time and consideration, and please make the right decision and keep our school part of the Upper Canada District School Board.
Thank you very much. Before I thank you again, and don't go away because the trustees may have some questions. I do want to thank all of the folks who stood very quietly up and sat back down. I appreciate that. It certainly showed the support without. I appreciate it. Thank you. Trustees, I'm going to open it up to comments or questions that you have of our delegate. Trustee John McAllister.
Mr. Berby, I have a question for you. You mentioned that 61% of the Oxford-on-Rideau catchment does not attend the school due to French immersion or the lack of French immersion programming and the lack of before and after school programs. Which of the two is more important in your opinion?
Through you, Chair, my personal opinion is I would think within the rural community, probably before and after care. Now, I say that hesitantly because I don't want to speak for the people that don't attend that school, but I know the people that have chosen to choose Oxford are there because they don't need that, right? They've made other arrangements. It's not to say that if French immersion was in that school, then maybe the people would come back and attend the school that's in their area. So I think both would be equally important, and probably speaking to the people that either attend the school or chose not to would help drive that, if that answers your question.
Can I ask a supplementary, Chair? Is the option of Oxford on Rideau being designated as the core French school in that area a feasible one, in your opinion? And have you discussed that as a group?
So through you, Chair, we have discussed this, and it all depends on if we're talking dual track or we're talking EFI. Obviously, it sounded like based on the last board meeting where the report was spelt out to the trustees that there's a certain number that they look for to maintain a dual track school. So Oxford does have that capability at capacity. 245, I believe the number was 250 for a dual track was suggested. So at 245, that is a school that would be full with the option of removing the board administrative office to create more space. So I believe there is an option for either or. Dual track seems to be the way of the future, and there's mixed reviews. So I mean, that would be hopefully the board's decision to feel what would be the best suited for that building.
Trustee Swan.
Based on your calculations, how many pupil places is the board office taking up right now?
Through you, Chair, I believe that it appears based on the floor plan that there's 4 offices that would be considered classrooms. If that's correct, based on dividing 245 by the current classrooms, it works out to about 22 students a class, so we're talking an additional 88 students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Cram?
Thank you, Chair. Do you have any statistics or actual commitments from parents that they would enroll their children at Oxford on Rideau if there was a after-school program there?
Through you, Chair, there was commitments and opinions expressed in the board survey, as well as we conducted our own group survey and reached out to the community. And that data was also presented in our report and presentations. So there is commitment. I mean, and short of talking to, as a growing community, it's still a small community. So you speak to friends and peers that have kids in the other schools, and they say they'd come back in a heartbeat. I mean, that's us talking. It's, I mean, short of polling them, or I don't know if there's a way to reach out to the families of the schools in this feeder group and ask that question.
Supplementals?
Yes, go ahead.
17% of the students in the catchment area that attend other schools cross-boundary, not French immersion. How do you propose that 17% who already leave Oxford and Rideau come back?
Through you, Chair, it's difficult to answer that question only because that number is pulled from the school information profile, which shows that 38 students cross boundaries. So my interpretation of crossing boundaries would mean that they would attend South Branch because currently Kempville Public School takes up the whole boundary of our area for the EFI. So that being said, that's a difficult one to answer right now. It would be kind of inquiring, I mean, if that stat's available, then the board would know who those 38 families are, and possibly we could find out. It may be a daycare. You know, it could be as simple as daycares where KPS, there's the option of daycare and French immersion, so the families where French is a value, they attend KPS, where if it's strictly a daycare issue, then they may be leaving to go to South Branch to be able to have that daycare option. There's nothing currently present at Oxford.
Go ahead, Trustee Cram.
Difficult question for you. In your presentation, you've kept saying, and it's true, that the final report says subject to space being made available. I have an open mind still in all of this, because in my honestly, in my own particular ward, I don't have any issues right now. So I'm open to listening to what other people have to say. However, as opposed to a closing date that's to be determined, would you prefer an actual date to close, a hard date to close, if that was the way we went?
Through you, Chair, quite frankly, speaking for myself only, yes, I would rather. I'd rather it close tomorrow than drag it out for 3 years, because we need to move on. We need closure either way. We need to be rooted and to move forward, not to sit back and wonder what may happen. And using the numbers in the report, then these are the only numbers that we have used this whole process. It seems to me like that space will not be available, just based on the numbers of current students today and the growth of this area, which does trend up. Even though the report may suggest enrollment is declining, it doesn't appear to be the case here, and I feel like most people would agree that's sitting up here tonight.
Thank you. Trustee Bill McPherson.
Thank you. Two questions. First off, okay, we're working now. I hate technology. First question. Before and after daycare depends upon a community service provider. You're in a very competitive market in the North Grenville District for that kind of service. Is there an available provider for before and after school programming?
Through you, Chair, I'm going to answer this question probably with a question, because my interpretation of the requirements is a little bit different than is being suggested currently. My impression is the board is actually obligated to provide before and after care to every school. There is stipulations, which I believe currently is 20 students, interest of 20 students. And then it would be up to the board to either have in-house before an extended daycare or facilitate the third-party daycare. So all this area needs are the numbers. And right now, when the survey goes out every year, it's polling the people that currently attend the school that does not have daycare. It's not polling the 61% that don't attend that school but live in the area. So I'm sorry I didn't answer your question probably, but I feel like it's not up to the community, although we would be very willing to aid and help and try and find a way to make this work with third-party daycare. But really, it's all about the numbers and the requirement to provide for these families.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second question.
Yeah, go ahead. This has to be the final question. Go ahead.
This is hypothetical. It's been my experience that every time we build a new school, we attract students from a great many areas. What would you think the impact upon Oxford and Rideau of the new school opening in Kemp will be? Do you think there will be a movement to the urban center? And again, it's hypothetical.
Through you, Chair, my impression on this issue would be that we're already losing students based on this whole process. I don't know if families are going to want to go into a school that is maxed right out, although the incentive of a brand new school always seems to even pull kids from the coterminous board. So I don't really see a drastic change in our numbers with KPS opening. I do see it declining just with the uncertainty.
Thank you. I know we had one more question, but trustees, to be fair and follow the rules, I have to set the example. Sean, I apologize I had your name wrong.
No, it's
Your
quite
last
all
name.
right.
I apologize for that. Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our second presentation. This is Prince of Wales School, and I'm going to ask Tara Bondi and Jennifer Brower to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Director Sliwa, and the Board of Trustees for this opportunity to address this special meeting on behalf of the students and families of Prince of Wales Public School in Brockville. Tara and I had hoped to not be here tonight. We had hoped to read in the board's final report that Prince of Wales School would be removed from the list of schools threatened with closure. However, here we are, saddened and disappointed to learn that our school remains on the list. We were blindsided by the news it was now a Category 1 closure, and our students would now be moved to Commonwealth. This was something that parents of Prince of Wales students hadn't had a chance to consider, and now have only had a week to process and prepare commentary on. We went through the ARC process, working our hardest to construct a solution based on the criteria we were given, only to find when this was over, it was, surprise, a new school. I can speak for several ARC representatives who feel betrayed that this new school was not in the original documentation, so that they could have tried for a solution with all of the information on the table. Representatives who put in hours of strong effort now struggle to believe it was all discounted.
We feel it is important to ensure the trustees understand the true message of what was delivered through the ARC process, as we feel it has not been properly represented in the final report made by the board. Here are some key thoughts for you to consider before you vote. Have you considered the overwhelming response from parents against large super schools? Many respondents to the survey for the ARC3 community particularly use the word super school to describe a school with a large population of students. They use the term as something they wish to avoid. Have you considered how the parents, teachers, and EAs of special needs students rely on the resources available to them at Prince of Wales? It was noted in the ARC process several parents had asked to cross boundaries to bring their child who has an IEP to Prince of Wales. These parents recognize the value of the opportunities Prince of Wales has to offer. Even the ARC representative for Commonwealth in the second ARC meeting on January 26, at the conclusion of the Prince of Wales presentation, in which it was asked that Commonwealth students be moved to Prince of Wales, was only concerned that moving Commonwealth students to Prince would not disturb the resources such as a sensory room. Our school has been a leader in the development of a life skills program that is offered to these students every day. This program allows students with autism or developmental delays to practice a variety of life skills. Prince of Wales plays a role in the educational matrix of Brockville in that it gives the students space they want and the programs they want. Parents want their children to attend Prince of Wales for good reasons. When you have all schools at 80% capacity or above, you don't have the space all students require.
Have you considered the number of parents who advocated for a quiet residential area of the city for school location and who were very concerned with the location of Commonwealth in a soon-to-be construction zone on a very busy street? As it was stated in the Brockville Elementary School Alliance presentation, 450 people joined the Facebook group of a proposal advocating for a school in the east of Brockville being Toniata and one in the west of Brockville being Prince of Wales. This large group did not ask for 2 schools in the east of Brockville. In fact, many respondents in the ARC process specifically noted the busy streets, the crowded, expanding infrastructure around Commonwealth, and asked that the students of Commonwealth be moved to another school in the name of student safety. They noted specifically the factory next door coming on stream and the Brockville General Hospital expansion right next door. One person even wrote in to complain that the school bus stops traffic on Pearl Street in front of Commonwealth while the bus is loaded and unloaded. How safe will this be when Pearl Street is made even busier? Have you considered the numbers that support Prince of Wales over Commonwealth School? The FCI of Prince of Wales is listed as 73, while Commonwealth is higher at 93.4. Why would you choose to move students into the school which is listed in worse condition? Per pupil utility costs are higher at Commonwealth, being $343, and Prince of Wales is 343 at Prince of Wales and $440 at Commonwealth. Community use hours at Prince of Wales are double that of Commonwealth at 126 versus 59. And the projected enrollment in 2025 has Prince of Wales at 132 and Commonwealth at 76. The change in the average number of births per year that was provided to us in the Prince of Wales community is plus 12%, while Commonwealth is a negative 31. This displacement of a larger number of students from their community school does not add up. Have you considered how moving students is stressful, and now Prince of Wales students may face multiple moves, plus an uncertain future with the proposal of a new school? Many parents will look to schools elsewhere that have a stable future and not want to have their children move multiple times. And just from today, so far, 8 families from Prince of Wales have confirmed that they have begun the process of registering their children next year in the Catholic School Board. Have you considered the rate at which the west end of Brockville is growing? There is a large housing development with over 200 homes currently being built. Have those numbers been considered?
Have you considered the value of walking to school? Children arrive at school more focused and ready to learn. They've had fresh air, exercise, and a connection with their neighborhood and surroundings all before entering the school. The vast majority of students walk to Prince of Wales. Prince of Wales has only one bus, and this bus is not full because most of the students live in the community and can walk to school. This will no longer be the case as their school moves further away into a much busier neighborhood where parents will not feel as comfortable letting their children walk. Have you considered that parents simply don't want the school moves that have been proposed for Brockville? As was stated previously, 450 people joined the Facebook group that advocated for a plan for a school in the East Brockville and a school in West Brockville. 450 people. In terms of the entire ARC process, you had 4,000 responses to your survey, 4,000 responses from the entire population the Upper Canada District School Board represents. This group advocating this plan for schools in East and West Brockville has support from people in Brockville of more than 10% of the total number of responses from the entire board. What these people were signing up to support was a school in the East Brockville, which is Toniata, and a school in West Brockville, Prince of Wales. They did not sign their names to a plan that said move these students to Commonwealth.
Have you considered the value of social media? Social media carries weight. 450 parents joined a Facebook group to ensure their voice was heard. The parents asked for one thing, and the final report has given them something else. They will remember. Prince of Wales also has over 200 signatures on a petition that we handed to Mr. Coombs to keep Prince of Wales open. Have you considered where will the new school go? Some believe it may be on the current Toniata site, but I believe the documentation said a pristine site, which means a site that has not had a school previous. So where will that be? Have you considered the difficulties of getting money for a new school? This is perhaps the largest. We were under the assumption this process was about reducing the number of available spaces in the board to save money as the Ministry of Education has changed its funding. It seems hard to believe, having just reduced the amount of money the Ministry of Education gives the Upper Canada District School Board, they would give us a bunch more to build a new school. Also, 2018 is an election year in Ontario, and without playing politics, it would be difficult to believe that in an election year, the government would be concerned with initiatives like building a school. More likely, they will be concerned with wider initiatives concerning all of Ontario. So it might be a couple of years, maybe 2019, 2020, until the Ministry of Education is looking to build a school. Assuming it takes a couple of years to design, plan, and build a school, we are looking at none of the students currently in grade 1 or above receiving the benefit of this new school. Not only, according to your plan, do they not get to experience the new school, but these students will be in a school their parents do not want them to be in for the rest of their elementary education. Please provide our children at Prince of Wales with the same recommendations as Toniata. Please reject the final recommendation to close Prince of Wales and keep the children in their school environment until the Ministry of Education has approved the funding required for a new Brockville Elementary School. Give the people what they want. Please vote against the final draft.
Vote to give the Brockville community what they want. Read the survey responses, listen to the presentation, and review the ARC committee summary. It will be clear to you what a sizable portion of Brockville parents want is an East Brockville school and a West Brockville school. Vote to keep a school in the West End, with West Brockville expanding with houses, and more people will move into the Prince of Wales immediate catchment area. People want Prince of Wales to be the West Brockville School. People want Prince of Wales to be left open. Vote to keep Prince of Wales open. Thank you. Just kidding.
Thank you very much. Trustees, comments or questions? I don't believe there are any comments or questions because you've given us a lot to think about. Oh, yeah, one. Trustee Cram.
Thank you, Chair. I was trying to give somebody else an opportunity first. In your report, you were saying of the special needs students at Prince of Wales. Are you assuming or insinuating that the board would not follow through with its responsibility to deliver services, spec ed, to those students who deserve it, if in fact we change students out of Prince of Wales?
Through you, Chair. We're not assuming that at all, but what we are proud of at Prince of Wales is specifically 2 rooms designated towards the children who require a little bit more attention and care. One is the life skills room and one is the sensory room. And as far as I'm aware, in any of the other schools in our Brockville family of schools, there isn't a room set up and designated for these children like there is at Prince of Wales. So that's what we're fighting for, is that extra space, that extra bit of attention that is provided to the students. And 30% of the population, student population at Prince of Wales uses those rooms or has IEPs and requires the use of those rooms. So I'm not assuming that they won't be taken care of. I'm just asking the board to consider the extra special attention that they receive at Prince of Wales because of the use of these 2 specifically designed rooms, sensory and life skills rooms.
And I would just like to add that we would love it if you would come by and see those rooms in action, because they are well used and well appreciated by the whole staff and community there.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. You posed the question upon us, have you considered, several times. Have you considered that the board has done this in other parts of the board where we have consolidated schools? Have you considered that we take care of special needs students on a regular basis and transition them from one school to the next, not just in the city of Brockville? Have you considered seeing what else is being done across the rest of the board? Those are some questions that I think need to be answered if you're posing those to us, because I think it's important to note that perhaps there's something different that can be offered to students, and it may be better. Another question, I guess, is have you considered that maybe the students would like the change?
Through you, Chair, I think just to answer the second question first, I think we have a small community, and it's an overwhelming feeling of sadness that the school that has been open for 125 years is about to close. It's a heritage school. Many people have grandparents that have gone there, and they're very sad to see that close. So yes, we've considered that, and I don't think anybody's excited for change. They're nervous for change. They're nervous for the unknown. And through the whole process, we were only ever told about being put in portables at Westminster. There was never the option that we were going to be put in Commonwealth until a new school was built, until this final report came out. So we've gone through this whole phase thinking about being in portables at Westminster, and haven't had much time to consider this new proposal. So that was one, and I'm sorry, the first one was, did you want to address that? Or?
Yeah, special needs students.
The special needs students. Well, we have heard a lot of feedback about the resource room and the life skills room, and it doesn't exist in any other schools in Brockville. So we think that's great. Why doesn't it exist in other schools? I don't know. So that would be something, sure, that if you do end up closing Prince of Wales, we would certainly advocate to see that those rooms do make it into the new school. But if you're filling these schools so full, are you going to have the space to do it? So that's often the case, right? I know at Westminster, they didn't have space for that kind of thing because it was so crowded. So that is our concern. So we just like to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Trustee Cram, you said you had another question?
As a follow-up to the previous answer, it was a question I wasn't going to ask, but I will now. I'm a little surprised that you've only had a week to prepare. I'm a little surprised that you've been blindsided by it, because if you look at the building for the future and the comments that came in from several of the respondents to that, Commonwealth was always mentioned. That information should have gone to through the ARC, and if it was through the ARC, then your ARC representative should have known something about it and at least prepared you earlier than this, that it was a possibility, not that it was going to happen or not that it was in the report, but that it was going to happen, that it was a possibility, which would have given you enough time to at least prepare more than a week for it. So it's just the question as to why have you just heard about it in the last week?
Yeah, sure. Through you, Chair. Of course, it was always an option. When both Tara and I were, well, Tara was our ARC representative, I was the alternate. We attended every meeting. We read every response that came through. We were privy to all of the information. Every scenario has gone through our head. It's not that we were, I guess I did use the word blindsided, but what the concern is that our students were supposed to move into Westminster in portables. That was what we were told through the recommendations. That is what we fought for. And then as a category 2 or 3, it was never actually clarified. So there was a lot of sort of confusion from the beginning where Prince of Wales stood. With the final draft, it was listed as a category 1, which was in a sense a blindside, because a category 1 definition was that it would be moved to a school without the need for an addition of a rebuild. That was a category 1. So to say that now our children are going to move to an older building with a higher FCI, but that school doesn't require a rebuild, that was sort of a blindside. That was not information that we were privy to. Or the new school. We did say also that the new school, a suggestion of a new school, although it was in the feedback from the community, it wasn't provided from the board level. So that's also something that we, didn't need to fight for. We didn't have to fight for. But just to mention, with the alliance that we formed, the Brockville Alliance, there was always a thought of that new school and how we could displace students to equal the enrollment levels in each school equally. And I think we did a really great job of looking at all of the schools in the Brockville feeder group and distributing them evenly in the existing buildings. Yeah, did that answer your question?
It puts more in perspective the wording of the blind side, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that particular response. So the main issue is Prince of Wales is not opposed to closing, it's opposed to where it's going.
So through you, Chair, just to clarify that, we've always fought for a school to remain in the West End. That's what's important to our West End community, is that our children have a place to walk to. The majority of our children walk or scoot or bike. A very small portion of our students go on the bus. So keeping a school in that West End is what was important to us. We laughed when we went through the process. We said, even if it's called Prince of Commons or, the new Westward or, make a new name, that doesn't matter. What matters is that a school stays in that West End of Brockville for us.
Thank you. Okay, trustees, I think we don't have time for another question. Jennifer and Tara, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next delegation, this is change management, closure of Oxford on Rideau, and I'm going to ask Katie, and Katie, I apologize if I don't get the name, Katie Lex.
Toniolo.
Toniolo.
I was going to see if you wanted to
I was going to
try
say that, and I didn't want to say it loud on a microphone, but
I don't blame you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and good evening. So we wanted to take this opportunity to look at this process through the lens of change management. So we'll start with the draft recommendations that were released last September. And the vision of the board at that time was to reduce the almost 10,000 empty pupil spaces that existed. So part of that was then to close 29 schools for category 1, 2, or 3 closure. And part of that was Oxford on Rideau, which is in the rural community outside of Kentville that was also slated for closure. So immediately, a whole bunch of us concerned parents met to determine a strategy because we love our school, just like so many other parents here. So we started by looking at the utilization numbers. And one of the first things that we noticed was that 8,000 of the 10,000 empty spaces were considered in the review. So about 2,000 were just left out of the review and not considered within this report. We also noticed, which was commented on earlier, that North Grenville utilization is imbalanced, but we have no excess empty pupil spaces. So Oxford on Rideau has low enrollment, but within the North Grenville feeder group of schools, we have high utilization. And something else that we noted was that the 2015-2016 utilization figures were quoted with the new KPS being open. We completely understand why this is, because they're projecting forward, and it only makes sense that you project forward with that school being open. But what it doesn't show is that KPS is at 220%. Right now, KPS is at 220%. So then if we calculate our utilization, we're at 105% utilization right now. That's our current state. So we have more pupils than we have pupil spaces within North Grenville. And if we use the new KPS being open, we're still at 94%. So there's just not a lot of room for growth within North Grenville. And we also wanted to touch tonight on the community feedback. The Ministry of Education changed the PAR guidelines recently to really put an onus on the community feedback, a real pressure on the community feedback. And in that community feedback was that it was heavily favored for status quo. And I'll read a quote from that ARC 3 report. There is substantial support for not closing Oxford on Rideau Elementary. Many people commented on the high growth area of Kentville and its outlying areas, and the concern that there will be overcrowding at the new Kentville Public School and at South Branch Elementary. There was also a strong community's desire for collaboration and discussion before changing of boundaries and programming. There was concern about less access to the gym, library, one-on-one time teachers, etc., and that larger isn't necessarily better. Our students currently have daily access to the gym, which just doesn't happen at the larger schools. There was also strong municipal and provincial support to keep Oxford on Rideau open, and we have also heard a lot about the enhanced programming options at Oxford, and this was within the community feedback as well. So the summary of the recommendations in the final report were to close Oxford on Rideau effective September 2018 and consolidate with South Branch, pending space being made available at South Branch. So given the facts that were presented in the 3 SOS public meeting delegations, and given the facts that were presented in the municipal delegation, as well as the community feedback that was communicated in the ARC 3 report, we were genuinely shocked that Oxford on Rideau was still in this report for closure. And we immediately felt as though the process had failed us. Further to that, as Sean had commented on earlier, a closure when space made available is probably the worst possible outcome for our school. This means we won't have any enhanced programming, it means we won't have any building maintenance, and it means we won't have any new schools, because parents aren't going to send their kids to a school that they can't put down roots. They don't know if that school is going to close this year, next year, 5 years from now, they don't know, and they're not going to send their students there. Some themes that were in the final report are listed here. So support for rural schools, limit bus transportation times for our students, limit overcrowding in schools and the use of portables, and careful implementation of student transitions related to school closure. And these all relate to Oxford as well, but we really wanted to point out the support for rural schools. That was number 1 on the themes from the community feedback. Oxford is a rural school. Kemptville schools are not. We know Kemptville's not Ottawa. We know Kemptville isn't Toronto. But Kemptville also isn't Oxford Mills or Oxford Station or all the rural areas in between. If schools really need to be consolidated, this isn't our huge desire, but we understand that the board needs to make changes. If schools really need to be consolidated, consolidate Merrickville and Oxford and put a new school in a rural location. If you look at where Oxford sits within the North Grenville Feeders group of schools, we're right smack dab in the middle. We're in a fantastic location. And if schools really need to be consolidated, this is something that we would be willing to discuss. We also wanted to talk about the geographic impact of the final recommendation. So this is the Upper Canada District School Board broken up into wards. And 66% of the board is not impacted by the recommendations. There's a couple that are impacted by Category 3 closures, as well as some that are impacted by Category 1 closures. And we would suggest that this is not a balanced approach to looking at consolidation. But one other thing that we really wanted to point out was that within the final report, there's a quote, "Further our dialogue through the new community-based contacts established during the ARC process." So many of these other areas were taken off of the final report, and they're going to further their dialogue with the board and find good solutions for those students. And that's what we would ask for Oxford too. Let's sit down, let's work together, let's figure out what's best for North Grenville and for our students and for the board. As you know, during the public meetings, the Oxford SOS group recommended adding EFI to the regular programming, which is called dual track. The final report stated, while overlapping attendance boundaries for elementary school French immersion has had a profound impact on the enrollments of some schools without French immersion, many of our small elementary schools are not of a sufficient population size to accommodate effective programs in French immersion and regular French programming. And this really felt like it was a bit of a change, or at least leading us down the garden path a little bit from that first report. Because in that draft report, Merrickville was suggested that if there was a desire, they could put dual track in Merrickville. Also, within the initial report, there is a precedent for dual track in smaller schools. So there's 5 smaller schools that have dual track that have an average enrollment of 210. And it's also been commented on at the last board meeting that perhaps triple and quadruple grades would be an issue if you had a smaller school. And we really don't feel that that would be an issue within Oxford because if you look at the catchment area and the numbers that are going for French immersion, we would double our population. And we don't have triple and quadruple grades now, and we don't feel we would have that going forward. So I also wanted to talk about the growth within North Grenville. It's been talked about already tonight, but I wanted to touch on it again. So on the y-axis is enrollment, which was this is North Grenville enrollment, which was in the final report. On the right-hand y-axis is the population change, which is our census data. And on the x-axis, we have the years from 2001 until 2016. And you can see that they track very closely together. So probably around the time when Boundary 2020 was happening, you can see that indeed there was initially a drop in North Grenville growth and followed by a plateau, but we are no longer in that plateau and we are increasing quite a bit. And if we get rid of a bricks and mortar school, we're going to be short of pupil spaces in no time, and we're already there. If we get rid of Oxford, we don't have enough pupil spaces. So lastly, I just wanted to come back around to the change management piece. This is a rubric that's used quite a lot in businesses and hospitals for deciding whether they're ready to go ahead with a change. So if you have all of these different categories, then you go ahead, yes, you're ready for change. We would say that the vision isn't clear at this point. We don't have a consensus because we do not have enough pupil spaces. We would have the skills. The incentive would be the funding from the provincial government. We don't have the resources because, again, we don't have enough pupil spaces. And we don't have a clear action plan. So then you end up with these end states, which just show that we're not to go ahead with a change. And like I said, we don't feel like the vision was quite met because initially it was to reduce empty pupil spaces, but now it seems to be changing because we haven't we're not reducing the number of pupil spaces at all. Plus, North Grenville shouldn't even be on here if it's about pupil spaces. So what we would like for you to think about is that we're not ready to go ahead with this change at this time and to take North Grenville off of this final recommendation. Thank you.
Thank Thank you very much. I'm going to open up the floor to questions or comments from trustees. Trustee Karkner.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. You refer to enhanced opportunities or enhanced programming being brought to Oxford on Rideau. What would you refer to? What are those enhanced programming that you would think would end up at Oxford?
Through you, Chair. Enhanced programming would be things like the daycare, would be things like French immersion, but then we also have, there's another presentation tomorrow night that would be focused on bringing in technology into the school. We can make it a tech-centered school. There's so many different options for what we could do. We just haven't had the time to investigate all of that. And because we're in a rural community, lots of parents have come to us and said, you know, I'd love to teach about sustainable living, or I'd love to teach about gardening, or like there's lots of different things that we could do that would be rural-based or tech-based. We just haven't had the time to really investigate all of the different options that would be available to our school.
Thank you. Any other questions, trustees? Seeing there are none, thank you very much for your presentation. Our next delegation I would ask is from Augusta Township, and I'd ask Mayor Doug Malenka to come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, board members, senior members of board staff, fellow mayors, and any members of council that might be here. As introduced, I'm Doug Malenka, Mayor of Augusta Township, and I'm here representing the township, parents and residents. First of all, I want to thank the board for extending the days for the delegations because it enabled us to be able to get onto the agenda, and I thank members for their time. This evening, trustees, I'm going to stress that my comments are directed specifically to you and not to staff. And the reason I say that is because Chairman McMillan made it clear at the last meeting that I sat here where the last report was received that until the report was tabled, your role was only to ask questions or for clarifications as opposed to looking at the meat and getting down to the critique part of it. At the end of the evening, he clarified that it is your time now. In my presentation this evening, I'm going to address my general grievance with the board recommendations for closure, highlight reasons why Maynard Public Schools should not be closed, and end with a challenge to you. And I'm just going to say that I'm going to read it rather quickly because at one point in time I saw I went over the 10 minutes. So if you're following in text, you will see sections where I just jump over them a little bit, but I know they're part of the record and I know you'll look at them. And I'm going to go fairly quickly. With regard to my general grievance, I refer to an open letter the Ontario Alliance Against School Closure sent to the Honourable Minister of Education, Mitzi Hunter, dated October 25th, 2016, and that is part of the record. That open letter stated that the revised pupil accommodation review guideline has resulted in fast-track school closures that leave no room for thoughtful and wise consideration of the social and economic effects of closing the only community hub in a rural or fragile neighborhood setting. The letter goes on to state that the process provided no consideration of health of the child, who may now be forced to spend hours a day riding on buses, no consideration of severely reduced extracurricular sports and clubs available when schools disappear, and no consideration of the heritage or history that a school represents and what it means to the community. The Alliance pointed out in its letter that prior to March 2015, changes to the accommodation review guidelines, school boards were required to prove that the decision showed value to the student, value to the board, value to the community, and value to the local economy. The Alliance stated since then the last two values have been quietly removed from the guideline. I cannot agree more with the observations and would add that it's my view of the process that I've viewed, and I'm new at this, that the board has concentrated on two, which is value to the board. And I recognize the term value to the board includes consideration of the students. But there is the broader area of community, there is the broader area of community economy. And I believe that if the process is flawed, that's where we need to have a second look at it. This year at the Roma conference, a delegate who had been a career school teacher told the Minister of Education that consolidating schools into larger schools in urban areas is not in the best interest of rural students, and that rural schools have value for municipalities and must be preserved. She added that a few of her students are also Rhodes graduates. The delegate insisted that decisions to close schools must be based more than on economic decisions. Now, the minister responded that she supports local schools in small communities and that the review process put in place was to consider rural issues. So they were really confirming it. She confirmed, however, that the decision rests with the local school boards. Now, it just happened that Premier Wen was there and added that local school boards have been directed to make decisions that will result in savings, but expects all local boards to consult with municipalities and other boards prior to any decision. And I respectfully submit that all of this was not done. And the best example is part of the conversation about transportation at the last meeting talked about consulting with other boards to reduce the impact. And I remember that there seemed to be a hesitation to even use the word the separate school board or the Catholic school board. With regard to the proposed closure of Maitland School in Augusta Township, when the province approves funding for enlarging Wellington Elementary School in Prescott, the following is reiterated for trustees' consideration to keep a Maynard Public School open. Maynard Public School is centrally located within the township, serving the rural area and communities of Maitland, North Augusta, Roebuck, Algonquin, and Domville, and is the last public school remaining in the township of Augusta. It's important to the health and well-being of students that commuting distances be kept to a minimum. It's unavoidable that many of our students from the west and north end of our township will face significant increase of up to more than an hour in their commuting time to attend school if Maynard Public School is closed and students are transferred to Wellington Elementary School as recommended. The Township of Augusta is working with the Ministry of Economic Development and Growth and industrial leaders to reestablish our industrial park as a site-ready investment opportunity. This designation provides potential developers with lands and existing industrial buildings that are available for development. There remains hundreds of areas of prime industrial commercial lands that can be sold and developed by other small businesses. These efforts may well be negated by school closures in the area that will discourage the desired additional development. Moreover, it's becoming apparent at family events held in the township, the child population is increasing rapidly. More than 230 people, including children, attended a snow day in Maitland on Family Day this year. And I've seen the same number of growing children in North Augusta at their Labor Day event. Now, Maynard Public School is located adjacent to the township's Maynard Recreation Center, which includes a ballpark, tennis court, outdoor rink, and significant open spaces for cross-country and other outdoor activities. Future planning considerations include a splash pad and an additional ball diamond. The facility, as with all recreational facilities, are open free of charge to schools, for fitness clubs, and recreational programming. In 2017, the municipality received funding to refurbish the Maynard Recreation Center, which will improve its accessibility and ability to students. Closure of the public school in Maynard, which is right beside it, will surely lead to fewer and fewer residents who will benefit from this facility, as families may choose to locate it in another family-friendly town. Infrastructure spending has been made available to small communities through the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. Township of Augusta has been a recipient of this funding in 2016 and 17. The province has stated that the OCIF is intended as an investment in building and repairing critical infrastructure in small, rural, and northern municipalities and is being put to good use in our township. The school board should also be prepared to invest in the small and rural communities within its borders by continuing to support the school infrastructure that is critical to maintaining a healthy and vibrant community. Township of Augusta recognizes that the municipality and its residents have a significant stake in keeping our schools open in the community. Therefore, there are a number of ways in which council may contribute to support the Maynard School. The township owns 13 acres of property adjacent to the Maynard Public School, portions of which could be donated to the Upper Canada District School Board for construction of a new, accessible, and energy-efficient school appropriately sized for the community, or share it at no cost, provided a wide variety of outdoor opportunities and education for students. The municipality has staff expertise that could be provided to well monitoring, well testing at no charge. Maynard is currently operating daycare spaces in the Maynard School, and there's a waiting list. The property could be extended to accommodate both the improved school and additional daycare spaces. Maynard Public School has significant room to grow. Indeed, a whole new modern, efficient school could be built on the school property or adjacent to the township lands, while the existing school continues to be used for children from, and other community hub purposes. As above noted, Maynard has one of the largest child care centers in Leeds and Grenville area, making it impossible to speak about the importance of keeping Maynard Public School open without speaking about that child care center. MTJB, more than just babysitting child care center, operates within an entire wing of Maynard Public School, occupying 7 of the school's classrooms. MTJTP now offers a total of 366 child care spaces spanning 5 different locations. The largest location is in the Maynard main site, located within the pub, offering 118 spaces. The site also employs nearly 20 employees, some which have been employed since its inception. If I'm reading that clock right, is that 35 seconds left? My Lord. All right, I'm going to have to go to the end of it. You have the document. There's a good argument there for the importance of the Child Care Center, which has not been addressed as far as I'm concerned in the report. And essentially, what I would like you to take away, and the challenge I make to you, is that I said earlier in the presentation that I think there's a need to be exploring at greater the value to the community, the economy of the community, and the value to the children. I know that the board has made efforts to communicate, but I think we've opened the door to much more, and hope that you'll take us up on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Swan.
Through you, Chair. Reading your report, it's my understanding that your proposal is to not have the board do a rebuild at Wellington in Prescott and keep the children in Maynard because the space would not be needed until perhaps down the road a rebuild could be done in Maynard. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair, that is correct. One of the things, the approaches that parents and residents have taken in looking at this whole matter is not to look at another school and say, take them, not us. But when I've gone and visited Wellington, it essentially is a school in an established community, and it's essentially right size for the area that it's in, and for the growth that would be needed in order for the imports. And again, if there's consideration for this question of the child care, that I think the open lands that are available in Augusta Township, the proximity to Wellington, in that the distances changed are going to be less meaningful for that than the western and northern part of our community that are going to really have to travel long distances. We just think that it's a better option, and we think the idea also that I'm told, but I would like to see the reports, and I'm not challenging, but just to see them, that Maynard is a cost that it's more costly to fix than to rebuild, but money was spent for the child care center. But the point is that the school, there's enough property for the school to sit there and be used while a new one is being built. And I just think that that is an aspect that, again, I would like to propose to the board members that you look at before you make a final decision, and more invite you for that meaningful consultation, because in my view, and I'm a neophyte to this thing, so I tend to come at it sort of looking at the paradigm and saying, where are the strengths and where are the weaknesses? And right now, the part that I feel has some weaknesses is that communication with the community or with the municipality. We're talking about making sure that it meets the economy interest of the community and the values of the community. Well, that can only happen by having board members and members of council and staffs talking together. Just yesterday, we had a visitation from the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority where they discussed their priorities and where they were going. We discussed what our needs are and where we needed to go. And at the end of the meeting, we started having capable of much more meaningful decisions. I've never had that with my municipality. And I accept, as I say, I'm a neophyte to the operation. I accept that the municipality has some responsibility for reaching out, and I will accept that maybe we didn't do it as hard as we should have. But at the same time, when it comes to who's leading the discussion for major changes, the question is who's the leader? And I put it to you as trustees, you are the leader. You set yourself up at election time saying, I will represent community values and I will represent you. And I make no criticism of the board. They have followed the criteria that has been given by the province, and that's why I say I think that they've looked more at the value to the board with its, but we need to have that broader look, and I don't believe we've had it. And as I say, I encourage, I guess it's the chair who represents my area, so I look forward that we could have discussions on this and answer any other questions that the board might have with regard to the proposals.
I'm going to pass my chair over to my vice chair so I can ask a question, because you know in my position I don't ask questions. Yes. So through you, Chair. Yes, I do represent Maynard. When you are talking about proposing that we were to look at a rebuild down the road, is it not true that in Augusta Township that it has a great increase in the aging population of over 55 and a decrease in population between 0 and 15? So our young people are not there. Our older people are. Yeah. And for us to present a case to the ministry for a new school down the road when we know the population is decreasing and the number of students that we have to be able to put in that school aren't there, how would you expect us to respond to that? Or what are you doing to take care of that?
Well, through the chair, I think the difficulty we're having with statistics now is that they're getting rather old. And we've had the value of Stats Canada recent summary, and I understand that some of the summaries are starting to come out. I can only go at what I see anecdotally. Yes, the current charts say we're losing to older population. But in order to stem that, we've got to be having strategies that keep our children here, because already that means we're losing. But more to the point, I tried to cite a couple of examples where it is clear that there's evidence that the population of children is growing, young families. And I can only say that I went door to door on my campaign, and I believe I got about 90% of the households. That's not that everybody was there. But one of the things that struck me when I was doing it was that in two of our small villages, there was a lot of people saying that they're new to the community and small families, and we're asking, where are the recreation facilities and where are the schools? So I can only answer anecdotally. There is a growth. And right now, Augusta is enjoying the fact that we have some very promising looks at commercial, industrial, and residential building. As a politician, you don't ever guarantee anything. But at the same time, there is a direction that is heading in the right way. And part of the discussion I didn't get to was essentially you have all of these Ontario provincial programs that are in place to help fund small communities like mine to get back on its feet for having lost its industry. And what we have here, if we go forward with this board decision, is a step backwards, because it's something that we can't say to parents when they come into or thinking coming into our area that, yes, we have a school. In fact, if this closure takes place, we have none.
Thank you. Yes. No, I don't have a follow-up. I'm going to take the chair back, and you had a question.
Yes, I have a question.
Thank you.
In your presentation, you spoke about working with the Ministry of Economic Development and Growth. Have you had any kind of firm commitment from them for funding that you said could be used to do all kinds of neat things in your community at your recreation area?
We have had funding from various organizations, and they are being used to enhance the recreational centers. The most recent announcement, I said promising. The most recent announcement was a gentleman who is looking to establish a water park within Augusta Township. This would mean a huge number of jobs. And moments of it being announced, I was advised by a fellow mayor that there is an agency in Ontario that deals with tourism. And they've already done a report on the successes of water parks and what it would take for a success, and found it very interesting that the person proposing it, it's as almost that he used their report as a copy. And right off the bat, they offered that there was some possibilities of funding that would help with the studies that are needed in order to establish the park. I can't be specific. I've gone through a bunch of notes here quickly, and I don't want to get any of the program, but just to say, yes, we have had advantages from the government in actual funds to conduct studies in our industrial park in the past, and we have recent monies that the government is looking, the current government is looking to ways to help communities like mine get back into place. We have had a difficult time, and I think finally we're seeing some chances of success because of the support we're getting from the Ontario government.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald, then Trustee McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the work that you're doing to bring economic development to the community, when did that start?
The last 2 years. I've been mayor for 2 years, and one of the things that platforms I put into place was to try and to develop the recreational areas in Augusta Township. And the CAO is responsible for making the grant applications. We have had grants approved for the Maitland Recreation Center and for the Maynard.
Trustee McAllister, I won't be able to get to you because of the time, so Trustee McDonald, can you do your last question quickly, please?
So I guess my confusion comes from the fact that we've had a school in the community for a number of years. You say that the school is an essential part for economic development growth. We haven't seen that economic development growth, and your concentration on economic development now seems to be around recreation. When we heard the question from the chair, he talked about the aging population, and we don't have the breakdown of the 2016 census, but in the 2011 census data, there's 84% of the population in Augusta Township is over 15. Maynard is an elementary school. And when we looked at a report in January to the Board of Trustees around capture rate, we had Maynard at 40% in 2015, 40% of the capture rate. So that means 60% of the kids that live within the Maynard capture area are going somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And you're telling us that Maynard's the only school in your township. Do you not think that the community is telling us something?
Your question is loaded with a lot of things. Your first one was the assumption that the focus has been recreation. In fact, that is not the case. One of the successes that Edwardsburg Cardinal had is that they established a site certification in the location of Giant Tiger. And it became clear in the province working with us that they looked at our industrial chemical site and said that that too is a site that they think has great potential to be able to market in the same success that Edwardsburg Cardinal has. And the focus of our efforts have been more in the area of that number one priority in the community has been working to reestablish the industrial park. So currently we are working with the Ministry of Economic Development and Growth. We have Mr. Dogood's look because he's interested, he has expressed interest at the Roma conference of using this as a good example of a site-certified location that can be cited for an area where it is not supplied by municipal water and electricity, but because of its proximity to a plant that's capable, more than capable, of providing energy, water purification, and natural gas, that they want to help us market this. We also have a staff member who's working with the Director of Economic Development in the counties in order to make sure we provide them with the material that they're going to need to do the marketing. So there's a full commitment in the industrial, or rather from the Ministry of Economic Development and Growth, to assist us with that particular area. And I'm suggesting to you that we're heading in the right direction in terms of being able to market it for someone to actually come in and do it, and to use the facility. And I'm just saying that just having another school close out is just one of those things that work against you.
Okay.
Now,
I
in
thank
terms
you.
of-
I'm just going to have to move on, but I thank you very much for that answer, and I think we got what you're saying. The other thing is we do have your full comments, and we'll go through those. I know you skipped through pretty quickly on
Quite a
that,
bit.
and we appreciate that. So
It just seemed the 10 minutes of question was longer than the... It
Pardon?
just seemed the 10 minutes of question was longer than the time. Time goes fast. Thank you for your...
It does. Thank you very much, Mayor Malenka. Okay, our next delegation is Tegwa, and I'm going to ask Sarah Patterson to come forward.
Good evening, and thank you to the chair, trustees, and the UCDSB senior staff for this opportunity to represent the school council at Tegwa Intermediate and Secondary School. My name is Sarah Patterson, and over the past 8 years, I've been actively involved as a volunteer and council member in UCDSB schools, first at Long Sault Public School, and now at Tegwa, where my children currently attend. Throughout the pupil accommodation review process, we've understood that your ultimate goal is to assess how schools in the UCDSB are serving students and to make decisions to more effectively meet their needs. Tegwa School Council is committed to working with the board to support our school through the coming transitions, to build on programming and deepen community partnerships, and to see our graduates equipped to be leaders and innovators in our communities. We appreciate that the Board of Trustees has been listening throughout this process and considering the values, concerns, needs, and alternatives proposed by many community voices. And we trust that you want the best outcomes for the students of the USDCB, just as we, the parents, schools, and the communities you serve, want the best for our children. Tegwa School Council has been engaged in this review process and appreciative of how school board staff have worked with the ARC committees over the past 5 months to provide guidance and feedback. Thank you also to the trustees who've taken time to come and listen at ARC working committee meetings, at information sharing sessions at our school, as well as the 2 public meetings. Tegwa Council feels that the concerns and core values of our school have been heard, and that Tegwa can be regarded as part of the UCDSB solution moving forward. Community engagement is vital to life at Tegwa, which was evident throughout this review. The chart seen here demonstrates that the Tegwa community and its feeder group were engaged in the process, as Tegwa's participation in the board survey is second only to Charlan's. Our community valued the many opportunities to offer feedback. Collectively and individually, countless hours were spent navigating the review process through many avenues, and the Tegwa School Council looks forward to its conclusion. Community engagement is also an important factor in Tegwa's health and sustainability. Some examples are highlighted here. Graduating students are supported each year by generous bursary and scholarship donations. $40,000 are donated annually by businesses and organizations in North Stormont, South Stormont, and North Glengarry. Tegwa's facilities are regularly used by a number of community groups for meetings, fundraisers, competitions, recreation and fitness programs, and more. Tegwa also benefits from local and global community partnerships. Volunteers from the Boys and Girls Club of Cornwall visit Tegwa to engage and support at-risk students. Through the Carleton University Engineer in Residence program, Tegwa teachers work with an engineer to develop lesson plans with an engineering focus. Partnering with Habitat for Humanity since 2006, the Tegwa community has participated in reconstruction projects in New Orleans, Louisiana. South Nation Conservation delivers workshops to Tugwa students both on-site at the school's pond and at off-site locations. Tugwa Student Council leads fundraising activities throughout the year in support of a child we sponsor through World Vision Canada. And Youth Unlimited offers a safe zone over student lunch periods. This is an inclusive, informal space where all students are welcome and where they are encouraged to engage in global citizenship initiatives like We Day, Me Too We, and other projects. In addition to our positive community support and engagement, Tugwa's programming options and facilities support a diversity of learning pathways and needs. The healthy size of our student body allows Tugwa to deliver solid conventional programming along with a multitude of elective choices for secondary students. Tugwa offers quality core French and French immersion programming from grades 7 through to 12. 2 specialist high skills major programs are offered, one in agriculture, one in construction. Both prepare students to pursue trades or careers in these fields. Tugwa also has shops facilities and specialized programming for automotive, construction, and manufacturing technology. As well, courses are offered with a focus on First Nations, Inuit, and Métis art and history, and leadership development opportunities for First Nations students are supported. Tugwa also offers a thriving co-op education program, averaging 50 students in co-op placements each semester across diverse sectors and in many communities. Placements have included the Long Sault OPP detachment, companies specializing in plumbing, construction, and electrical work, the Upper Canada Veterinary Clinic, many family farms across the region, North Stormont, Roxmore, Maxville, and Long Sault Public Schools, Maxville Manor Seniors Home, Waterview Restaurant in Long Sault, Summit Fitness and Caveman Strong, Cogeco Cable and Benson Garage, Above and Beyond Wellness Spa, and that's just to name a few. The commercial kitchen at Tugwa is home to courses in food and nutrition and food and culture. The Fitness Factory is used both in phys ed and personal fitness classes and is also open to students for use over lunch periods. The arts are also richly represented at Tugwa through courses in drama, music, and visual arts. Some social science electives options include law, environmental resource management, world issues, modern world history, and an introduction to anthropology, psychology, and sociology. Adding to the diverse academic programming at Tugwa are the extracurricular offerings. Link Crew and Web are leadership initiatives where students from grades 11 and 10 help students in grades 9 and 7 integrate and adjust to life at Tugwa. The goal is to build a sense of community and belonging through positive relationships and activities that foster school spirit. Athletically, there's something for everyone at Tugwa, from basketball, soccer, volleyball, football, badminton, and hockey. Those are just naming a few. As well, a variety of clubs meet over lunch periods and after school, offering everything from art to dance, improv, theater. Students are invited to try new things and meet others with similar interests. Our student council is an enthusiastic group of student leaders who plan and host special activities, spirit weeks, pep rallies, and more to promote school spirit and engagement at Tugwa. These are just a few examples of how rich and diverse student life can be at Tugwa. All these initiatives are supported by dedicated teachers and staff who coach teams, lead clubs, and invest time and care mentoring our student leaders. As I wrap up this evening, I hope I've communicated how Tugwa is a thriving school community that serves the needs of its students well. Whether they're from a family farm, a rural community, or one of the county's many villages, Tugwa's students experience the kind of academic programming, extracurricular options, and leadership opportunities that prepare them to be successful, lifelong learners. Tugwa is also a community that gets to know and care about its students while developing skills for critical thinking and an appreciation for curiosity, diversity, and collaboration. Keeping Tugwa viable is a fiscally responsible solution based on its central geographic location in its catchment area, its current and projected enrollment, its facility cost index, and its programming options, both academic and extracurricular. Furthermore, the future health of Tugwa has a direct impact on the economic success of the communities of North and South Stormont and North Glengarry. Tugwa's facilities, co-op program partnerships, students, employees, and alumni all benefit the local economy across diverse sectors. Tugwa School Council believes that the Board of Trustees can be confident that Tugwa is indeed part of the UCDSB solution, and that approving the recommendations for Tugwa Intermediate and Secondary School will continue to develop and deepen Tugwa's capacity to be, as its name means, a meeting place for students to learn, grow, and thrive for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Can open it up to comments. Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Thanks for coming tonight. I wanted to ask you, how important is French immersion to Tagwa? Would you say your boundaries were more important or your French immersion was more important? If we had to give up one, what would you think it would be? I know it's a tough question.
That is a very tough question through you, Chair. I think French immersion is essential to the program offerings that Tugwa has and the strength that Tugwa brings to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Trustee McDonald?
You just highlight for me again, please. You talked about co-op opportunities at Tugwa, and you have several that you rhymed off. Can you just go over those again for me?
Sure, and this is just a very small sampling of the kinds of co-op opportunities that our children have benefited from. The Long Sault OPP detachment, a number of companies that specialize in plumbing, construction, and electrical work. Veterinary clinics, one of them being the Upper Canada Veterinary Clinic. Quite a few of the family farms right across the region. Public schools in our catchment area. The Maxville Manor Seniors Home. Waterview Restaurant in Long Sault. 2 fitness areas or companies in Cornwall, Summit Fitness and Caveman Strong. Cogeco Cable. A Benson Garage, that's an automotive garage. And Above and Beyond Wellness Spa.
Yep, follow-up, certainly.
So most of those co-op opportunities don't exist next door to Tugwa. So how do the students get to those locations?
That is something that is worked out according to the own students' means. It's not something that the co-op program provides transportation to. And yet, even though we are perceived as being in a bit of a remote location, over 50 of our students participate in co-op placements each semester, regardless of where the locations are.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Seeing there are none, thank you very much for that presentation. Okay, moving on to the next presentation. This is the Township of South Stormont. I'm going to ask Mayor Jim Bancroft and Councillor Donna Primo to come forward.
Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. My name is Donna Primo, and I'm a counselor for the Township of South Stormont. This is Mayor Jim Bancroft. Both Jim and I attended schools in South Stormont. Our children attended schools in South Stormont, and Jim's grandchildren attend schools in South Stormont. I'm too young for grandchildren, but I would hope that one day, when they are there will be schools for them to attend in South Stormont. If you are not familiar with South Stormont, we are located west and north of Cornwall, with the largest communities being Ingleside, Long Sault, St. Andrews, and Newington. As with many of you here tonight, we recognize that since our November 2016 presentation, the ARC committees have sorted through errors in the reports, the 2016 census has been released, showing that South Stormont has the largest growth in SD&G of almost 4%. South Stormont has grown faster in the last 5 years than Cornwall and the remainder of SD&G together, and is forecasted to continue in that trend. As presented in our January 2017 presentation, building permit data for South Stormont shows almost 400 new units have been approved since 2010. We have over 60 units in the approval process and 650 units in various pre-developmental phases. Looking at industrial growth, Ingleside has one of 3 certified parcels of land in Ontario available for sale over 100 acres in size. This site is being marketed globally. We talked about the impact on the community and businesses, and you will hear more about this in the community presentations from South Stormont tomorrow night. This is how your proposal looks. Let's take another view. Allow the students of South Stormont to have the choice to be educated in their own municipality by bringing French immersion back to Rothwell Osnabrook Secondary School. Allow the students interested in trades to continue having access to Tugwa Secondary School. Also, we believe it is important to the students currently attending Tugwa to be grandfathered into continuing their education there, as we believe that is in the best interest of those children. If you continue down the path of closing North Stormont Public School, why not consolidate Roxmore Public School and North Stormont Public School into a Tugwa K-12 school? Those students will then also be allowed to be educated in their home municipality. They wouldn't experience long bus rides, and the economical impact would be minimized, and there would be no need for an expensive addition to be built, thus saving taxpayer dollars. With our growth and having the largest population of school-aged children, the only reason 50% of students who could go to RO go elsewhere is because of the programming. UCDSB needs to provide the same level of service to South Stormont that it provides to other small municipalities with half the population. There is no doubt in our mind that part of the reason our community is thriving and growing is because we're a great community and we have great schools. One argument that we have heard was, sure, we're experiencing houses being built, but they're for seniors and retired couples. That is simply not true. The 2011 census shows South Stormont has the highest population of children newborn to age 14. Mr. Chair, in 2016, those children will be ages 5 to 19. They deserve a high school with French immersion in their own municipality. These figures don't account for the South Stormont's growth, and the 2016 stats will not be available until after the board's final decision. Let's look at some facts. The high school end of RO is underutilized. Yes, the students are leaving their municipality to attend school. Another fact that you simply can't afford to ignore is that RO was at 92% capacity in 2006, prior to the removal of late French immersion programming. Imagine if we could offer shops as well. What would our capacity be at then? RO Secondary School has the second lowest utility cost across UCDSB system. Second lowest utility cost. And over 30% of RO secondary students walk to school. The benefits are healthier students. The students are able to walk to co-op programs, after-school jobs, and they are able to participate in more sporting activities. There are economic spin-off to local businesses with those high school students in our community. Because we know that this is about the cost of 10,000 empty seats, we should also note to you that there would be a savings of $160,000 a year in busing costs. We need our students to be in a position that they can utilize co-op opportunities in South Stormont. We have a number of businesses that support RO in that programming: David Brown Construction, Foodland, Windmill Construction, Ingleside Timber Mart, SG Wells, Fines Home Hardware, Pharmasave, Parks of St. Lawrence, Butler's Restaurant, and also in Long Sault with the Township of South Stormont, Rick's Automotive, the Ontario Provincial Police, and Woodland Villa, just to name a few. On November 9, 2016, the Township of South Stormont unanimously voted in favor of a resolution calling for a moratorium to suspend the PAR process for a period of 1 year to allow adequate time to complete the work necessary to chart the course ahead in the best interest of all Upper Canada District School Board students, and that the Ministry of Education reinstate the consideration of the social, economic, and geographical implication of school closures. This resolution is supported by all 6 townships, the United Counties of SD&G, and over 30 other municipalities across Ontario. All other affected high schools in SD&G have received a moratorium recommendation in the final staff report pending future study. We are asking that Rothwell Osnabrook be given that same opportunity. At the Ontario Good Roads Association conference this week, Premier Wynne stated, to retain economic growth, schools are an essential service. She also stated it was imperative that school boards and municipalities work in partnership to achieve mutual goals. We know that you have what represents 10,000 empty spaces. The staff final proposal deals with less than 300 of those spaces. We know you have more work to do here. Let us help you. Let's work together with other municipalities and boards to find solutions together. May we propose continuing our partnership. Meet us at the table. We have already done great things with the board at RO. For example, the partnership for the Lancer Center, $300,000 contributed in 1990 towards capital improvements, which doesn't include $100,000 that was raised by the community. This $400,000 leveraged another $400,000 from the province for a total of $800,000. In 2016 and 17, the township and partners have committed nearly $500,000 in park upgrades that will include outdoor washroom facilities, upgrades to Ball Diamond, a multi-court sport facility including tennis, basketball, volleyball, and a play structure. This park is located on the north side of RO and can be accessed right through school property. You can see the school and the park right there in that slide. Together, the parents, students, Upper Canada District School Board, community members, and South Stormont Council and staff can ensure the future and continued growth in our community. Have I mentioned we want to meet with you? We are here. We are waiting for you to show up at the table. Please take the time to listen to the parents, coordinate a strategy with all community partners that gives all students in the Upper Canada District School Board an equal playing field. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to comments or questions. Trustee John McAllister.
Councillor Primo, I wonder if you could elaborate on what you really mean by the SDG task force and the renewed partnership with the board.
The SDG task force?
Yes.
We are here, that the township is committed to continuing partnership work with you. We want to hear what you need from us. We have community partners who are willing to work with us, and we have the staff and the council support to come to the table, hear what you need from us, and go forward from there to see what we can provide you with.
Thank you. Any other comments? Trustee Cram.
Thank you, Chair. Dealing with the French immersion issue first. When you've asked for French immersion at the secondary level to be returned to RO, currently you do have French immersion from kindergarten to grade 3, I believe, and grade 4 will be added next year. Assuming that goes right through the elementary school, then you are dealing with your secondary. Statistics will show that secondary students do not take French after grade 9. What benefit will it be to return French immersion at the secondary level to RO?
Through you, Chair. It is my belief that students are leaving the opportunities for education within South Stormont because there is no opportunity to learn French immersion. If you look at the statistics from 2006, it can prove that the decline happened at the same time French immersion was taken away. There is no other reason for the decline in 2006 other than the fact that it was taken away.
But French immersion is back at RO now.
Through you, Chair, only to grade 3.
Trustee Kirtner? No. Trustee McDonald? Sorry. Trustee McDonald.
So just on the French immersion piece for a second then, if we've reintroduced, and I want to make it clear, we haven't done anything to RO when we removed late French immersion. It was a board decision to do that across the board. So the idea that we've tarnished or haven't helped RO, I think that's a little bit of a heavy-handed approach because it was an approach by the board. So going back board-wide to the early French immersion that's been introduced. So we've introduced K to 3. Even though we've introduced French immersion and you have claimed to have it as a part to attract students, our enrollments haven't increased at RO since we've introduced early French immersion. What do you think? How does that speak to trying to resolve the issue of saving the secondary?
I think that if French immersion was in the secondary levels, that the students would come back and that you would see the enrollment go up.
So we also received a report recently at the board that as we see French immersion participation in the secondary level, even French as a general subject, in grade 9 and 10 there's a unique interest, but by grade 10 and beyond it starts to drop off. So having that opportunity for students to take French immersion in secondary across our board, even in grade 12 right now, we have 56 students who are participating, are getting French credits. Do you think that's going to help RO?
I think, Councillor McDonald, that you're zeroing in on one issue only. Through your chair, if you don't mind, please. I'm not going to be an expert in this either, because I'm sure the committee tomorrow night can give you more direct answers. But our whole presentation was not zeroed in strictly French immersion. We all know, and you all know here for a long time, that RO suffered dearly from not having the shops or the other programs available to us for a very long time. We also know that when in 2006, when they took French immersion away from us and put it in Long Sault, all of our students then were transferred to Ottawa High School. And French immersion, as you just heard a few minutes ago, was very important to them. So we say the same thing to you today. French immersion is very important to RO, along with all the other programs. What we consistently said here for the last 10 minutes is that we want to be your partner. We don't want to be the enemy here. And if there are programs out there that you need help with financially, that our council is ready to step to the table here today and tomorrow. But we can't do it if you don't tell us, give us a kind hand. We're not going to sit here and tell you that it needs to be IT, it needs to be some kind of shop, or it needs to be this or to be that. We want to be the partner, but we also want you to be at the table with us to tell us what that may be and see how we can move this process forward.
Okay. Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Just quickly, do you need it, if you don't need it in the high school, would you take it if we gave it to you in the intermediates for 7 and 12 in immersion? Because I think I heard on a presentation that we need to get the 6s out of our feeder school who are in immersion to go to the high school. So if we gave it a grade 7 immersion, then it would be more effective to feed and grow that school, correct?
I don't disagree with you, and to your chair again, please. There has to be a balanced approach. I mean, we're zeroing in to some degree on the French immersion side, but there's other aspects to this whole possibility here. Long Sault and Ingleside were 8 kilometers apart, where those students are now going off to Tugwa in the grade 7, 8 level. So that has to be part of the equation here, not just necessarily zeroing in on one aspect. So to answer your question, yes, but beyond that, we need the assistance of the other projects of programming in order to maintain that K-12 school. We've had a K-12 school for 30 years. It was the vision of Ontario for a very long time. So we're trying to say to you today, don't destroy that we've had for so long. Our school was only 60 years old in the building, but that community came from Ferns Point when the seaway went through, where we lost all our villages, about 6 or 7 of them. That high school was originally Ferns Point, over 100 years old. So please, while we're saying here today, we don't want to be the enemy. We're trying to be your supportive cast here. Well, we need that dialogue for that to work. And I think the problem is saying that to us, but they're not saying it to you. We don't want you to do this alone. We know how hard it is. Believe me. I sit on the East Ontario Working Caucus where there's 13 counties involved. We work very hard to get at the province. It takes more than just one board or one municipality to have any kind of success at all. You need us, we need you.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
To continue that through you, Chair, if they came back, if you gave us back the 7, and 8s, that would definitely increase, I want to say increase the student enrollment. It would decrease the empty spaces.
Thank you. Trustee David McDonald.
Thank you, and I can appreciate the fact that you do want to work with us, and I think that's an important piece as we move forward, not only with South Stormont, but all municipal partners as we move beyond this process. The reason I bring up French immersion is because it seems to be the contingent piece on if you bring French immersion back to late or to RO, then there's a repopulation of some students. Even with those students coming back, whether it's for French immersion purposes or not, I think there's about 200 students that are going to Tugwa that potentially could be at RO. We add that to the 129 that's there, so we have 330 students in a secondary component, roughly. I mean, it's not exact numbers, but if we look at census data, though, it's still not a large proportion of the students that reside in South Stormont. A large proportion of the students that reside in South Stormont are choosing to go somewhere else, outside of South Stormont. So I pose this to you as well as council. Isn't that an indication by your community that they want something different as well?
Possibly, Councilor McDonald, but I'm going to give you 2 examples. If you'll bear with me for a second, Chair, please. But the part about going out, I have 2 personal friends who went to RO. Their children went to RO. These 2 personal friends, their grandchildren, total of 9 children in total. That's only 9, but that's 2 families, 9 children. The only reason why they are going elsewhere today is because RO did not have French immersion, so they walked down the street to the Catholic board, and off they went. That's one example. So I can't answer your question directly. Yes, there's going to be some question marks as to whether it's going to all happen at once or not. But what I'm trying to say to you here is that we keep wanting to divide up our school between the public and the high. We don't recognize that, and I guess this is where we're different. We recognize it as a K-12 school. If all those students come back, it's not 330, Trustee McDonald, it's 500 some odd. And I guess that's where I differ from you on that aspect.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Okay. Okay, the next presentation is implement reasonable bus times, and I'm going to ask Bridget Reed to come forward.
Good evening. I'm here this evening to talk about closing schools, but mainly about the unreasonable time young children spend on buses while going to school. First off, I believe that the decision to close Maynard Public School was made consciously or unconsciously many years ago when this school board stopped making repairs to keep the building in good shape. Now it is too late, and the cost of repair has gotten to the point where it makes more sense to tear the building down rather than fix it. What I will be talking about applies not only to Maynard School, but also to any other school slated for closure. Most of the schools my presentation applies to are located in rural areas. Since I'm most familiar with this area, I will be using Maynard students as an example. The staff of this board has made the recommendation to transfer students from almost the entire Augusta Township to Wellington Elementary School in Prescott. Boundary Street in Prescott becomes a bottleneck when buses for 2 elementary schools are added to regular traffic. Currently, there are 4 large buses, 1 small bus, and 2 special ed buses bringing children to Wellington Elementary School. Add to that the 6 large buses and 3 special ed buses from Maynard, as well as parents' vehicles, and anyone will see how it will turn into a nightmare. At the February 15th meeting, the school board staff said that they strive to have no more than 3% of children on buses for over 60 minutes. However, the route planning software they're using seems to be missing something in its calculations. Children who are supposed to be on the bus for just over 50 minutes are in fact on the bus every day for 60 minutes one way, based on the observations of the parents and caregivers. So even if the route planning software shows a shorter time, the actual fact is different. In the 2015 annual report of the Auditor General of Ontario, it was suggested that this program is a useful starting point, even though the suggested routes may have to be manually adjusted. We also have to take into consideration the time it takes the bus to wait until the children can be safely unloaded, which can take up to an additional 5 minutes. I've seen full buses waiting in queue until they could safely open their doors, not just at Maynard, but at other schools as well. When I contacted the bus company about arrival times, they were not able to tell me when the doors open, but only when the bus arrives in the proximity of the school. Staff is also recommending that students be brought from the most northwestern part of Augusta Township to almost the most southeastern part of Prescott. Students will be coming from the border of Wolford and Augusta Township on Landonade Road, about 35 kilometers, which takes approximately 30 minutes if you drive straight through, taking the shortest route suggested by Google Maps. But we all know buses don't take the shortest route, and they make many stops along the way. This trip will easily turn into over 60 minutes in good weather twice a day. We currently have children living 8 minutes from Maynard Public School who are on the bus for 45 minutes twice a day. Others who live 25 minutes from the school are on the bus for an hour. So you can see how this adds up. Children as young as 3 years old as of September of the school year will be on these buses, having to sit still, not be able to eat, drink, or use the washroom. Young children continually receive written warnings about not staying seated during the bus ride. Anyone who's had young children knows how difficult it is to keep youngsters and their friends to sit still for even just half an hour, let alone an hour. Bullying becomes an issue. The bus driver has to be able to control some 25 or more kids, as well as keep everyone safely on the road. In the 2015 annual report of the Auditor General of Ontario, it states that the police determined that the school bus driver was at fault in 40% of the collisions. And we do have some great bus drivers. When talking to parents about long school bus rides, I've heard stories of buses stopping at bushes for pee breaks, buses backing into driveways to shield children while they squatted down, as well as a bus driver in another township who would stop at someone's house and let the kids get off to use the facilities there, because the driver knew that these kids won't make it home without soiling themselves. Some of the little guys rip their clothes off as soon as they step off the bus because they can't hold it any longer. If you expect children as young as 3 years old to be on the bus for up to and over an hour, you pretty much have to expect this kind of thing when there are no toilets on the bus. Even if they were told by the teachers to use the washrooms before boarding the bus, sometimes it just wasn't time yet. Before getting on the buses, the children get their bags ready, put on their snowsuits, and go outside for 15 minutes of recess. When the bell rings, they get their bags on board the buses. If they didn't use the washrooms before recess, there won't be time now. So they board the buses and hope that they can hold it until they get off. Young children also fall asleep on the bus. When my son was in kindergarten, he would get to school in the morning and stand in the doorway not knowing what was going on because he just woke up. Sometimes he would slide off his seat and sleep on the floor, other times even getting stuck with his backpack under the seat, and he had to be helped out. I always wondered what would happen if he was stuck under there and there was an emergency and the kids had to be evacuated. Would anyone remember him under there? I'm glad I never had to find out. I understand the necessity of closing old schools, schools that are underutilized, schools that have been neglected and in such bad shape now, they can't be fixed. What I don't understand is why the staff recommends that students are bused to schools in the furthest corner from where students live, not taking into consideration the extended bus rides. For Maynard School, it was even stated in the final staff report that transportation hadn't been looked at until funding was approved for a new school. When I brought up the extended busing times, I was told by school staff that it will be looked at when the time comes. When exactly is that? On February 23, 2017, the Toronto Star reported there are creative ways to achieve school equity. For example, some boards in Northern Ontario cap bus commutes to 30 minutes each way for younger students, 45 minutes for middle school, and 1 hour for high school. In our board, it simply states unreasonable. When you have young, healthy, energetic children who get up written time and time again because they don't sit still for an hour, would you consider that maybe their bus rides are unreasonable in length? When you have young children who need to use the washroom and have to relieve themselves in the bushes hidden by the bus, that maybe their bus rides are unreasonable in length? Based on the auditor's reports, schools see the bus rides as an extension of their school day. Is it therefore reasonable that some children's school days are 2 or 3 hours longer than others? Times that they could spend doing their homework, study, eat, run, laugh, and be noisy, and most of all, use washrooms. All schools should be located somewhat central so that we don't have these unreasonable bus times for young children. In Maynard's case, what will happen to the Maynard Public School building while the board decides what to do with the students? The building will continue to deteriorate, and eventually it will become an emergency to get the students out. Meanwhile, you have a large portion of land right beside the current building where a new school could be built while school is in session. Land that is much more central in location to where students live than the building's school board staff would like to send children to. Build the right schools in the right places. I'm curious how the staff of this board and you, the trustees, see the future of education in rural townships. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? We'll start with Trustee John McAllister.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mrs. Reid. I have a great deal of sympathy for the situation at Maynard, but I do question you on one point. The Upper Canada District School Board operates safe schools, regardless of the FCI index. So Maynard is a safe school. It needs, it's in need, but nevertheless, it is still a safe school. On what basis do you make the statement? I believe that the decision to close Maynard Public School was made consciously or unconsciously many years ago when this school board stopped making repairs to keep the building in good shape.
I'm talking about major repairs. We're going back to approximately the year 2000 when the parent council was told that a larger gym would be built, and that did not happen. Then, sorry, through you, Chair, then when Maitland schools closed and the children were added to Maynard School, we were told that additions, like repairs would be made to accommodate those children. That did not happen. Algonquin School closed, same thing happened. We were told that there would be repairs made to accommodate these children, and it did not happen.
Supplementary, Chair?
Yeah, certainly.
Do you not think that there is a distinction to be made between repairs and additions?
I'm talking about major repairs and specifically a larger gym.
That's not a repair.
It falls under the whole part of where we're told that it's going to cost $10 million to close that school.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Trustee Swan?
I want to thank you for your presentation. And I too find it disconcerting that transportation wasn't considered with the proposal of moving Augusta students into Prescott at Wellington. And I thank you for pointing that out. But I thought I heard you say that you asked about it. Did you ask about why it was never considered? I'd like to know that answer.
Through you, Chair, I was told that it will be looked at when the time comes. Those were the exact words.
Okay, not the same answer I got. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing there are none, thank you very much. Okay, our next delegation is Amy Sanders from the potential closure of North Stormont Public School.
Good evening, trustees of the board. My name is Amy, and I am speaking to you today in my role as an involved parent who was the North Stormont Public School ARC representative, as well as in my capacity as a CPA with 19 years of experience in public accounting, and not to mention one of the thousands of Ontario taxpayers to whom you should be accountable to. The Pupil Accommodation Review asked the question, do we have the right number of schools in the right places to support our vision for educational programming? I'm here to tell you that North Stormont Public School is in the right place, and the proposed closure is not in anyone's best interest, not the board's, not the taxpayers, and certainly not the students. I'm here to bring new information to you and to clarify some misconceptions that I have heard through this process. You should be made aware of the Nation Rise Renewable Energy Project. Awarded to EDP Renewables in March of 2016, it is situated in the municipality of North Stormont Township, specifically in the Finch, Berwick, where our school is located, and Chrysler areas. This project intends to supply the province with 100 megawatts of clean renewable energy. Based on early consultations with the company staff, community recreational funding should be provided commensurate with other local energy projects, resulting in $100,000 provided annually for 20 to 30 years. North Stormont Public School is the only school in our board that is located within this project area, and as such, we expect our students to benefit greatly from these influx of community resources. I also want to make the trustees understand that because of our geographic distance from the next closest school, that North Stormont Public School receives top-up funding, as per the final report by board staff, amounts to $101,000 for the 2017-18 school year. The school that the board staff wants to add on to does not meet these requirements and that would not receive this additional funding. Throughout this ARC process, so much misinformation has been spread that our delegation felt we needed to make sure that the trustees were properly informed. The 36% utilization reflected in the report is based on old data. We are currently at 45% utilization, partially attributed to transfers from the French immersion school that the board wants us to consolidate with. There is also a misconception that our school feeds primarily into St. Thomas Aquinas, which is the Catholic school in Russell. On the contrary, 114 of our 121 grade 6 students fed into Tugwa Intermediate in the past 7 years. The other 7 students required highly specialized programming that's not available in this board. We also heard through ludicrous alternatives, such as removing sections of our building, that we had asbestos in our walls. We're happy to know that this is completely false and there is no asbestos in any part of NSPS. We felt that before you make your decision to apply to the ministry to add 114 pupil places to Roxmore for $2.86 million to accommodate our students, that you should know that there are local schooling alternatives available to our parents. 75% have said that they will choose to send their children to another school board. Feedback from these parents indicate that these families will not support a school board that does not support their community. The initial staff report states that because of Roxmore's geographical proximity to Tugwa, that it should not be considered for closure. This slide shows population of children 19 years and younger. It clearly shows that North Stormont Public School is situated much more centrally to the population. The next 2 slides I present using my professional opinion. The first slide is the financial cumulative impact from the addendum to the initial staff report. I emailed each trustee this breakdown to show that the savings brought about by closing Maxville and North Stormont were negligible once the cumulative costs were factored in. This next slide shows excerpts from the final staff report. Most disturbing to my professional sensibilities is that staff felt they had no time to prepare a projection of the full impact of operating funding and expenditures. Yet, they wish for you to make this decision without this knowledge. So, using the limited data provided, we can conclude that the board loses $1.15 million in top-up funding over 10 years, and the cost to taxpayers for an addition to Roxmore is projected at $2.86 million. You do avoid the capital renewal costs of North Stormont, but this means it will still cost you $1.6 million to close our school. 10 years ago, Roxmore Public School was awarded French immersion programming, and that's truly what it was, an award that has paid off in their overcrowded school. Since then, our school community has intermittently had board staff come to our parent council meetings and placate us with the promise of better programming and given us the task of marketing our school's successful traits. We have gone about our task of creating an exceptional learning environment with dedicated teachers whom are often called upon to take part in board pilot projects because, of course, it makes sense to test it on the smaller schools. We have had to change to early start and dismissal times to help the board save on transportation costs. It needs to be said that every school listed for closure in this final report only offers core French programming. For all our patience and graciousness, this is how we must come and speak to you trustees now. The facts at hand are twofold. Closing this school will cost your board in dollars and in enrollment numbers. We ask that the trustees put forth a motion to remove North Stormont Public School from the Category 3 closure list and to introduce dual-track programming to share the student load more equitably. I hope to remain a dedicated volunteer in your board for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Thank you, Amy, for that pointed speech.
It's meant to be.
Amy, in the report, it talks about 154 kids that are in the Roxmore going to the immersion school there. Do you believe that if we gave immersion back to North Stormont, that you would get those kids back, or do you think they would stay there? Like, are you saying to us, give us back immersion and we'll get those kids back, or?
Through you, Chair, it's my understanding that when you introduce dual-track programming, you don't introduce it across the board. So I would not expect the children that are currently in Roxmore attending French immersion to come back to North Stormont. unless they were in the early grades where I believe when you introduce dual track, you introduce from JK to grade 1. So for instance, if I had a child in grade 1 in Roxmore and I have another one coming up, then probably I could make that switch to my local school and have them both in the same school.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee McAllister.
You mentioned the renewable energy project. Are you suggesting that when this project comes to fruition, that there will be an injection of population?
Of population?
Yes.
Well, I'm definitely suggesting that if you bring $2 to $3 million in recreational community funding to your area, which can only be spent in the specified project area, that there is numerous resources that people will want to come and take advantage of.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just expand a little on my my friendly trustee, could you explain to us how that funding would be spent if you're aware of it, and how, when you say around, is it specific for recreation?
It's, through you, Chair, it's specific to community-minded funding. So I can only speak to another local project that's in the area, and it must be based available for the whole community. And I speak to the funding dollars. Their project is a 30 megawatt project, so they receive $30,000, whereas ours is a 100 megawatt project, so it would be $100,000. And I've spoken to the company officials, and they've agreed that that would be in line with what they usually do.
Thank you. Trustee Karkner.
I have two questions for you. First of all, on your misconceptions sheet or slide, you showed that 114 of 121 students fed into Tagwa, and you said that 17 of those students went elsewhere.
7. Sorry, excuse me, through you, Chair. Only 7. The
Okay.
7 remaining students.
All right.
Yes.
You said they went elsewhere because we didn't have the
That's my
program?
understanding, that there were highly specialized programs for students that need special help.
And do you know where they went?
My understanding is they did go to St. Thomas Aquinas in Russell.
My next question is, can you explain to me why, if we don't leave North Stormont open, why students would choose Chesterville, Russell, or Castleman when we have a school so close by offering French immersion?
Through you, Chair, I'm sorry, you're saying why would they choose the other? I think because they've been I think led astray by the board to think that they would support the community, the local community school.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. Next on the list, from Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, Mayor Pat Sayu.
Apologies here, just take a minute. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director, board members, senior staff, some fellow mayors here and fellow councilors, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, I am the mayor of Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, 312 square kilometers, 3,700 homes, population 7,000, 4 large industrial manufacturers, no high school, no grocery store, and only 1 bank. Our position as a municipality, with only 3 elementary schools remaining, 1 in each of our villages, is that we would fight equally hard to keep all of them open because of the vital role that small town schools play in supporting the heart of the villages. And we have determined that we would not play off one school against another. The entire village population, young and old, relates to the local school. This fact is reflected in our Doyle Tech report, supported by research and filed with the board. I believe that each of you, as individuals, understand this relationship between the community and its school. Closing a school in Cardinal is not the same thing as closing a school which has no town. We are pleased to note that the final staff report to the board removes South Edwardsburg Public School in Johnstown from the list of schools under consideration for closure at this time. Thank you for this final opportunity to speak on behalf of Benson School in Cardinal, which is still listed as a Category 1 school facing closure in September 2017. In his recent online video message, your chairman poses the ultimate question now before the board. Given the resources available to our school district, do we have the right number of schools in the right places to support our vision for educational programming? What can I say at this late hour to enlist the support of additional trustees that Benson School is the right school in the right place at the right time with the right educational program for its students? Our various submissions, including those in the Doyle Tech report, document the increasing investment, economic activity, job growth, and population increase now occurring in the Johnstown Cardinal area of the township. Benson School is an integral part of this municipal growth process, as is the new Meadowlands North subdivision of 106 residential units, and additionally, the township has just invested $1.1 million for the complete restructuring of James Street and the underground water and sewer infrastructure directly in front of the Benson School, including extra costs for sidewalks and boulevards to ensure student pedestrian safety, as well as consideration for bus turnarounds and traffic control. Since the board has been mandated to ignore the economic development arguments, such as the future of Ross Video in Iroquois and the Giant Tiger Distribution Center in Johnstown, I am not going to speak to those issues, and I will let the Doyle Tech report address those matters and the devastating $6.9 million adverse economic impact that the closure of Benson will have or could have to our small community. It is, however, the mandate of the board to consider the best educational interests of the students, and we submit that as individual trustees, you all know deep in your hearts the effect that the closure of Benson School will have on that community. Sometimes, as elected officials, we just have to trust our intuitive judgment, reset the priorities, and find the resources necessary to do the right thing for those we represent. Let us consider the educational interests of the students as perhaps best articulated by Temple Heidecker in her presentation to the Art Committee at the South Grenville District High School. It is well accepted that the most important factor in the educational process is the student-teacher relationship. And as the research quoted in the Doyle Tech report suggests, these relationships are best developed in the intimate settings of the smaller schools where every teacher knows and is a teacher of every student, and no student falls through the cracks, which often happens in the larger institutions. And this is a major factor in the Benson School cardinal equation, where the pupil-parent-teacher relationship provides a mutually supportive learning environment. Yes, it is true that Benson School has seen some difficult past years, but the board has now placed the right resources in the right place, and the school has a new positive atmosphere, which is certainly in the best interests of the students' educational experience. Parents are engaged with an active parent council, supported by industry and the larger school community. One example is the annual Christmas turkey dinner for all students and staff of the school, hosted by the local United Church. Additionally, the township provides free access to ice rinks, swimming pools, libraries, ball fields, and any other resource on a request basis, all in the interest of augmenting the educational experience and classroom instruction. We are also aware that one of the main arguments for consolidation to larger schools is the opportunity to provide a broader range of programs, both intercurricular and extracurricular. However, as the Doyle Tech submission reports, research has shown that while such opportunities are theoretically possible, nevertheless the uptake of such enhanced programming is relatively limited for a whole variety of reasons, not the least of which is that students do not feel engaged in the larger institution and the individual student educational experience sees no enhancement. Now, it is also true that as an organization, our municipality, we misinterpreted the board's invitation in June of last year for a greater dialogue and better partnership with the board and between the board and the municipality. Our involvement at the discussion meeting in Kempville was more as observers than as active participants in a process to bring greater municipal involvement in defraying the plant operating costs. The local adjacent Cardinal Power and Ingredient corn processing plants already provide free heat for the Benson School, and the township has offered to address water and sewer costs. We believe that more can be done, and we are willing to develop a greater and deeper working relationship in the interests of keeping children in their home community and the current supportive learning environment. Trustees should not be fooled by the cost argument that larger schools are more cost efficient, because as the Doyle Tech report and other research has shown, on a full cost recovery basis, existing small town schools are equally cost efficient as their bigger brothers when additional busing costs and the cost of money is fully factored in, referred to by the earlier speaker. And focusing solely on the best interests of the students and their educational program, the board should be aware of the following program enhancements sourced and financed by the local parent group. The Artist in Residence program, in which a successful, recognized professional artist will teach and mentor students in the school over a 10-week period. Scientist in the Classroom program, in which professional scientists are brought to the school for full-day sessions with students in their field of expertise. Raz Kids Reading program, funded by the parent group for all students to be used at home or at school to stimulate, enhance, and develop both interest in reading and proficiency in reading skills. The Reading Incentive program, offered to all students. I am assured that these are just a few of many program enrichment enhancements supported by the local parents, all of which will stop with the closure of the school as students and the cohesive parent group disperse to other institutions and communities. Is the loss of those programs in the best interest of those students? Benson is one of the right schools in the right place at the right time with the right educational program for the community it serves, and it deserves to be supported for at least the next 5 years as we look to increasing enrollment resulting from additional families attracted to the new jobs developing in the area, and while we are working with the board to reduce the plant operating and capital costs and find ways to optimize the usage of some vacant space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Sayu. Comments or questions? Trustee Bill McPherson.
Thank you. You've got a school that was built for 279 students. You currently have 82 there. That's 29% utilization. I'm curious, is there somewhere else these kids are going? Is there a coterminous school within Cardinal? Like, how many publicly funded schools are there in the village of, or the town of Cardinal, just out of curiosity?
Through the chair, if I may. Number one, we know that some of our students from Cardinal are going to the Johnstown School. We also know that some of our students from Cardinal are going to the separate school system in Prescott. That's no secret. We also know that this town has gone through a very difficult time. The town is really just a shadow of its previous self. But it's in a renewal process, and I'm very confident that that renewal process will bring additional students to the school. The subdivision to the north of town with 106 some lots is going to attract the low range housing, early family first home buyer. We know that the Giant Tiger Distribution Center in Johnstown is going to employ 300 people. They've told us that. They're moving their entire operation from Ottawa. Those people that are moving are going to be looking for that low-priced starter home type of home. The subdivision in Cardinal and the subdivision in Johnstown are going to be just what they're looking for.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee McAllister, then Trustee Swan.
Mayor Saya, Benson Public School may be the right school in the right place at the right time, but you and I have met on a number of occasions, and you have not been hesitant to challenge me and us with regard to various positions. So I have two questions for you. The consolidation of Benson Public with South Ed would result in 157 students approximately. That's hardly a large school subject to the drawbacks that you delineate in your presentation. And the second question I have for you is the program enhancements of artists in the in-residence scientists in the classroom, RAS Kids Reading Program, the Reading Incentive Program. These are wonderful programs. Are you assuming they will not be available at South Ed?
I'm making one basic assumption, and that assumption is that parents are most closely connected to the school that's in their community. That's a fact. I can't change that fact, and you know that. As individuals sitting there with children of your own, you know that. Will the parents in Cardinal have the same loyalty, attachment, to a school in Johnstown? I don't think they will. Will those kids all go to Johnstown? I don't think they will. So what I'm trying to do here, and I'll be honest with you and blunt, I'm trying to keep this school open for 5 years to give it a fighting chance. Cardinal and the whole area is in an upswing. It's been in a downturn. There's no question about it. I'm not going to hide that. You're all aware of it. But you know, the last census for the population figures just released from the last census show that we've gone up 2.6% in our township, one of the only townships in the entire Leeds, Grenville, United Counties that's had an increase in population. I'll tell you the kind of thing that's happening. I spoke less than 3 months ago to the person who's going to be the manager of the Giant Tiger Distribution Center. She just purchased a home in Johnstown. I said to her, now, would you tell me why you purchased the home in Johnstown and where it is? She told me where it was. Not a very nice location. I mean, less than 100 yards from the railroad track, but a new home. You know what she told me? Because I want my kids to walk to school. And you know what? Every parent that has kids in Cardinal are the same kind of parent. They want their kids to have that experience. Walk to school, walk to the fire hall, walk to the rink that's skating season, walk to the swimming pool. That's the kind of parents that we're going to attract into that little village. And there is lots of housing available, and the price point is right. And I'll be getting a lot of them from that Giant Tiger Distribution Center. We're going to work hard at it.
Thank you. Any other? Trustee Swan and then Trustee Cram.
Trustee Cram can go because I think Mayor Sayo touched on about the housing in Cardinal that was related to my question. Thank you.
And that doesn't give Trustee Cram any more time. Trustee,
Thank you, Trustee
Trustee
Swan. I
Cram.
appreciate that. On your presentation, you did say that, I lost it here for a moment. Basically, that we all have to do a reset. We have to find the resources. As elected officials, we have to take responsibility for decisions that we make. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. And that's what we are trying to do as trustees. We certainly won't be able to satisfy everybody in our entire board. It is a big board. We do have to come in under budget. We do have to be compliant, as municipalities have to be. We can't raise funds. There is no way possible, according to the Education Act and regulations, that we're allowed to raise funds as a board. We have to live under the envelopes given to us by the ministry. That being said, you asked for 5 years. Are you going on record to say that if we gave you those 5 years, that there would be no contest in closing Cardinal 5 years from now?
Well, I'm going to go this way. I've been in these spots before. 5 years from now, I'm not going to be here, and probably not a lot of you folks either. Folks, listen, I don't want to make light of this, and I know that you've got a tough job to do. And listen, we're in a municipality too, and we have to balance our budgets, and we've got all kinds of pressures on us. And you know what? We're getting the hospitals coming after us for money. We're getting, and you know, I've committed myself that we'll work with you as a municipality to try to defray some of your costs. I think I mentioned water and sewer costs. Where am I going with this? I'm going with this to the point that in 25 years in public service on various municipal council, I've always had the courage to look ahead and say to the guys that were sitting around the council table with me, listen, let's not worry about this $4 million we got to spend this year for a water treatment plant, because this community is going to be here 25 years from today. In a previous municipality that I was a municipal councilor in for a number of years, I think we spent somewhere close to $20 million. And I'll tell you, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning while we're sitting around there trying to make the decisions whether we're going to spend that money or not. You know what? I go back to that municipality today. It's all paid. The community still exists, and the time that we spent 3 and 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning making those decisions was well worthwhile. And I'm saying to the trustees, it may require some 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning meetings, and it may require some tough decision making. But you know what? Have some faith in my community. That's what I'm asking you.
Thank you for that. The final question goes to Trustee McDonald.
Very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you mentioned the Doyle Tech report, because I do have some questions on that. You mentioned that it was $6.9 million for Benson, but I'm going to challenge you in that, because the Doyle Tech report talked about all the schools affected in your township. So that was the $6.9 million for all of your schools. Now, I also challenge the data that Doyle Tech is using, and I hope that your taxpayers are going to demand a refund from Doyle Tech, because I think the numbers are very flawed. Their $6.9 million talks about school spending. Did they ever vet to see whether we actually spend that much? It talks about reduction in staff. Did they ever vet to see whether we would reduce that staff? In fact, the staff would follow the students.
Sir, through the chair, if I may. Sir, I'm going to address your question this way. I hire, in my job as a mayor, I don't profess to know everything, nor do I suspect or even claim that all of my staff has all of the expertise that's required to run a municipality. From time to time, we have to hire consultants to do jobs for us. We hire them for engineering, we hire them for consulting jobs, we hire them for road work, we hire them for a dozen different reasons. We hired them to do a socioeconomic impact study for us, and we asked them when they were doing that socioeconomic impact if they'd also look into the advantages of small town schools versus small population schools versus bigger schools. Now, I'm not going to second guess how they do their work. I'm going to accept their report at face value. And you may have a point when you say that the $6.9 million was the cumulative impact if both of those schools close. But you know what? Even if one of them closes, the impact is psychologically akin to both of them closing. And Johnstown School is off the list for now, I'll grant you that. But psychologically, Benson, the fact that Benson's closing leaves a cloud in people's minds. Or if Benson closes, I shouldn't have put it that way. That was the wrong phraseology there.
Thank you. We've run out of time, so I'm going to, I want to thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustees, we have two presentations left. I know some of the trustees desperately need to leave the room for a few minutes, and it's hard to concentrate, and I want them to concentrate. So can I get a motion for a 5-minute, and that's it, 5-minute recess? Moved by Trustee Kartner, seconded by Trustee Cram. They will be back in 5 minutes, I promise. I'll be out there at the door waiting. Okay, thank you very much. Trustees, we're all good now. Trustee Wendy McPherson down there smiling away, so that's good. All right. I thank everyone for allowing us to have that short break. It's really important that we are completely attentive, especially to Kara Symbolic, who's going to talk to us about It Takes a Village to Raise a Healthy Child, and it's Maple Groves Public School. And I'm going to turn that over to you, Kara.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody, and thank you for your time and attention. My name is Kara Symbolic, and I'm presenting on behalf of the staff and board of the North Lanark Community Health Centre, which is a part of a larger umbrella health and social service agency called the Lanark Renfrew Health and Community Services. The North Lanark CHC is located within walking distance of Maple Grove School in Lanark Village, and we've been an active partner and supporter of Maple Grove School since our establishment in 1992. The potential closure of Maple Grove School is a matter of great concern to the Board of Lanark Renfrew Health and Community Services, to the Township of Lanark Highlands, the Lanark Highlands Youth Centre, the Parent Council of Maple Grove, and many more. The children and families in North Lanark face many barriers that make them more vulnerable than their peers across Lanark County. These vulnerabilities come in part from the geography and are made worse by unequal access to education, social, recreation, and employment opportunities available to them across all age groups. Every day, staff at the health center come face to face with the challenges and barriers faced by people in the community. The hard choices people have to make between heating their homes, buying food, or putting gas in their car are a daily source of stress and dis-ease for many of the people we see. Moving the children of Maple Grove to any location outside of the village without the wraparound supports provided in the village and by the community would disadvantage these children even further. We welcome the pause provided by the board as you look more closely at the Perth family of schools, and we appreciate this opportunity to provide trustees with information about the local context in Lanark Highlands to inform your decision-making as you go forward. So for those of you who are less familiar with the geography of Lanark County, this map shows Maple Grove School in Lanark Village, the red star near the center of the screen. Maple Grove is located in the far southeast corner of its catchment area, which extends all the way to the border of Renfrew County in the north and Frontenac County to the west. And other schools within the Perth family are noted there, Smith Falls being on the far right in the sort of orange. At every stage of life, there are different factors that influence our own personal health and well-being, and these are called the determinants of health. Our income and social support networks, our sense of belonging, our educational background, and our experiences in early childhood play a significant role in determining our health. Although they are listed separately, they don't exist in isolation. Knowledge of the determinants of health can be applied not just to individuals, but also to communities and to populations. And this is called taking the population health approach. By attending to the social, cultural, and economic conditions in a community, community leaders can dramatically influence the health and well-being of individuals and populations. And the population I'm most concerned about are the children and families in North Lanark, who are the most vulnerable and at risk in all of Lanark County. As evidence of this, I'm going to show a 3-minute video clip with permissions on measuring healthy child development using the early development instrument. And we hope it works.
A child's early years of life are incredibly important. What happens during the first 5 years has lifelong effects. That's because the brain develops rapidly during these years and changes based on a child's experiences. If children receive good quality stimulation, support, and nurturance during these years, the brain will develop in healthy ways, giving children a strong foundation for future success. Sadly, not all children have positive experiences during these crucial years and lack the stimulation, support, and nurturance needed for the brain to develop in the healthiest way possible. That means there are more challenges for these children as they grow. Many later problems, including school failure, antisocial behavior, teen pregnancy, obesity, high blood pressure, depression, coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, premature aging, and memory loss, can be traced back to early childhood. But if we help children and families early on, we can avoid many of these negative outcomes thanks to the brain's ability to easily change and adapt at this stage, something that becomes much harder as we age. Investing resources during this unique window of opportunity provides the best return on investment, with governments receiving between $4 and $8 back in benefits for every $1 spent on early childhood programs. That is why knowing how our young children are doing is so vital for their future well-being. If we don't know how children are doing, we can't identify any problems, we can't effectively help them, and we won't know if things are getting better or worse. To stay informed about children's early development, communities across Canada and around the world are using the Early Development Instrument, or EDI for short. The EDI is a teacher-completed questionnaire developed by Drs. Dan Offord and Magdalena Janis at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. The EDI measures kindergarten children's ability to meet age-appropriate and developmental expectations across 5 general areas: physical health and well-being, emotional maturity, social competence, language and cognitive development, and communication skills and general knowledge. Teachers are best suited to complete the EDI because they know the range of appropriate child behaviors and skills within a school setting. And by the time they complete the EDI in the second half of the school year, they have had plenty of opportunity to see how each child learns, plays, and interacts with other children. After teachers complete the EDI on each individual child in their class, the results are grouped together to give a snapshot of how children are doing across schools, neighborhoods, cities, or even provinces and countries. Children who fall below the standardized EDI cutoff scores are referred to as vulnerable. Research shows that these children are more likely to experience poorer outcomes later in life, academically, emotionally, and in their relationships with peers. Focusing on strengthening the areas in which children are vulnerable allows schools, communities, and governments to make decisions on how to best support early development. Schools may be good at recognizing individual children who struggle, but without knowing the major areas of strength and weakness in the school and community, there can be no action to help all children. Most of the children vulnerable on the EDI do not have any health problems and will not be helped through any other means. Without knowing how all children are developing, schools and communities are left guessing. This is what makes EDI data so important. In many places, collecting EDI data is the first step toward mobilizing communities and engaging those who aren't usually involved in promoting the development of young children. By getting a glimpse of the development and well-being of young children through the EDI, people can be inspired to do something to improve the lives of our young children and help shape a better future in their own communities and beyond.
So thank you, techie people, for your help with that. So this graph shows the percentage of children who are vulnerable or at risk in each of the 5 EDI domains that contribute to a child's readiness to learn and to meet the task demands at school. It compares the populations of children in townships adjacent to Lanark Highlands. The red bar shows that in all 5 domains, nearly half of the children in Lanark Highlands, upon school entry, are either vulnerable or at risk. Throughout the ARC process, I've heard the word shocking used to describe this slide, and it certainly is. Beyond the vulnerabilities and challenges already noted, anybody who lives or works in Lanark Highlands knows a few things with certainty about this population. The people are resourceful, they are determined, and they aren't afraid to roll up their sleeves to help their neighbors. They also expect this from us, the people who provide service in their community. Many individuals and organizations, both large and small, have responded through the delivery of free programs and services that have often been uniquely designed for this population and this place. The result is well over 15,000 hours of face time, not screen time, with children each year. All of these programs directly address in some way the risk factors noted in the EDI related to physical health, social competence, emotional maturity, and more. Organizations funded from the Ministries of Health and Long-Term Care, Community and Social Services, Children and Youth Services, Culture, Tourism and Sport, and of course Education, all provide free programs and services on site in Lanark Village. And usually in partnership with any number of local not-for-profit organizations, like the Lanark Highlands Youth Center, Big Brothers Big Sisters, 4-H, the Lanark Civitan, Roots of Empathy, Children's Resources on Wheels, Lanark Community Programs, I could go on. If the students from Maple Grove were moved from Lanark Village, many of these programs and services would not go with them. There are several reasons for this. One is the availability of suitable space. Another is the longevity and innovative nature of the working relationships that have evolved between the school, the community, and community partners. And another is related, again, to geography. Currently, the greatest distance that a Maple Grove student travels to get to school is 55 kilometers. That's the first leg of their journey. The second leg to the next closest school is 19 kilometers. This 75-kilometer trek is equal to the distance between Brockville and Perth via Smith Falls, or Kemptville and Ingleside via Morrisburg. Imagine you're a single or low-income working parent with an older model car that's not great on gas, and your child wants to stay after school to attend an after-school sports program. But that would mean you would have to pick your child up. And the 150-kilometer round trip is just more than you can handle after a day of work, or more expensive than you can afford. I imagine most of us would reluctantly and with regret tell our child to take the bus home. In closing, the free wraparound programs currently available to children and their families in the Highlands can make all the difference in the world to their health outcomes. Maple Grove School is an essential part of the community. It's woven into the fabric of the community, and for the health and well-being of the community and the children and families who reside there, it needs to remain there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions? Trustee McAllister, you have a question?
It's just a comment. I was in Perth when you made your presentation at the ARC meeting, and it made as much sense then as it does now, so thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair.
Thank you. No other comments or questions? I thank you very much for that. Okay, our next delegation, our last delegation for tonight, but certainly not the last for us. We have another night tomorrow night. This is Benson. It's called The Right Choice, and I'm going to ask Joanne Valhenke to come forward. And you have someone else with you as well?
Yes, Pam Day.
Pam? Nice to meet you, Pam.
Okay, first before we technically start, we would like to hand directly to Jeff 895 signatures. They are all opposed to closing of our school.
Thank you.
Hello to all the Board of Trustees, and thank you for letting us speak tonight. We'd like to start tonight's presentation with a couple of stories. When Cardinal was looking to become a village, the residents weren't sure they had enough people to meet the requirements to qualify as a village, so they put up a large prize for a horse race. They were sure the prize would draw a crowd. After the horse race date was announced, they invited the census taker to come and measure the size of the village on the day of the race.
My name is Pam, and I am a parent council member as well. My husband grew up in the village of Cardinal, and I have 2 children, both of whom are 4th-generation attendees at Benson Public School. So you can see our families are just 2 of the many multi-generational Benson Bears. I want to share a story about the bond the Benson community has with our families. When my son was 5 years old, he became very sick, so sick that he ended up in CHIO for weeks. When I explained what was happening when I went into the school because my son wanted extra homework for while he was at the hospital, his teacher cried along with me. The entire school sprang to action after I left. Knowing it would be a financial strain on my family, the school came together to help us. They had a food drive for us, as well as purchase gift cards for groceries and gas so we can go see him every day and not have to worry about it. Eventually, my son came home. On the very day he came home, his teacher came to our house. She was armed with balloons and presents and get well cards from every single student at our school. My son was only in kindergarten. When Jared was able to start back to school, they had a clap in for him as he made his first steps back into the public school. This is a community. This is caring. We are a family at this school, not just teachers and students.
We would like to talk about some of the things that Benson is offering our children. The Ontario Early Years program has been a part of our community for years. It runs every Tuesday and Friday morning in one of our classrooms, and it lets families come together at no cost and let the children get to know the school and the students where they do attend. Unfortunately, should Benson close, not only will we lose our school, but with the program as well, because it's the only running playgroup in our community. For our older students, we always do the Y on the Fly program on Wednesday evenings. A member of the Y spends an hour with our children in the gymnasium, and they will not be able to attend if our school closes. Children in our classes start out not only learning the entire required curriculum, but are being introduced to skills using hands-on experience that will benefit them throughout their lives. Our children start out junior kindergarten learning how to garden. There is a large garden located outside their classroom. They learn how to tell when produce is ready for picking, how to cut their vegetables, how to cook the produce into soup. They get to share the soup and take a walk to the local food bank and share the excess produce to those who are in need in our community. Come spring, they learn how to make rows, plant seeds, and watch everything grow, knowing that when they return in the fall, they get to go back and see how big everything has grown over the summer. Our children will lose this. Little ones at Benson are not expected to spend their whole day cooped in a classroom. As long as the weather cooperates, they spend the mornings or afternoons outside learning, they exercise, and it gets messy. And they love it. They make mud soup and they collect and learn about leaves while they do so. The school has set up 2 large sheds full of outdoor learning toys, and they learn hands-on building skills. Every year we host a white elephant sale. Almost 1,000 gifts are donated and purchased by our children to give to their families. Items are not only donated by the families and by volunteers, but also the businesses within our village. The volunteers wrap every single gift. Santa's elves visit our students while they are away on the last day before Christmas vacation. Elves go to every hook, delivering stuffed toys to every student. The pure joy the children express when finding these secret surprises bring tears to the adults' eyes. Many of our students start days a week practicing yoga. Concentration levels and productivity greatly improves from taking a short time with relaxation as often as possible.
Located in the heart of Cardinal, you will find Ingredion. Not only does Ingredion supply stable, long-term employment to our residents, it also is very generous to our school. They rebuilt our entire sports equipment room last year. We have a modern sports room full of brand new equipment and everything a kid could ask for. They help fund iPads and computers enough that children do not need to share. Each year they host a community cleanup inviting our students to take part. As a thank you, they give each and every child a t-shirt commemorating the event and a lunch. They are our neighbor and our support. Our other neighbor, Cardinal Power, also is very generous to our school. For over 20 years, they have saved our school thousands of dollars by giving us free heat. This amazing deal cannot happen elsewhere. According to the annual report, our utility costs are the lowest per pupil already. Think of the savings and drop in cost per student if we took in our sister school students instead of the other way around. The Cardinal Water Treatment Plant supplies the village of Cardinal with municipal water, whereas Johnstown is supplied by wells. They cannot expand or create any new homes without substantial costs. Our village is set to have a new subdivision built to help house the new workers for the industrial growth. Therefore, Cardinal will be receiving most of the influx of residents. Our children enjoy many free walking adventures here in Cardinal. Yes, I said free. The community and township fully support our school and students. They offer free swimming, library visits, guided mail tours, community cleanup walks, play days at the park, food bank tours, and escorted Remembrance Day services. During the winter months, they offer free skating, holiday church meals, and decorating of the town tree, just to name a few, all without the use of a bus or school funds. Not only do our children enjoy these things on a regular basis, but we get full advantage of these services for free with the addition of exercise included. Our sister school uses are limited by the fact that they must be bused. Why would we take this away from our students? Why would we add extra expenses of busing to give fewer adventures? How about we give these advantages to another 80 students instead? Let all students attend and enjoy these adventures for no cost to the board or the school, and give another 80 kids the exercise our children enjoy from the walks. Let all students enjoy the community in which our school resides. Our community gives us so many free options, and we have little transportation cost. So our parent council funds get to always be directly used on our children. The thousands we raise every year give our children scientists in the classroom, 10-week professional art lessons, special sports equipment, educational trips that are completely free for every student, extracurricular days, and other amazing school adventures.
We would now like to talk about what else Benson has to offer. Of course, we would prefer that you would be willing to keep both schools in our township open. If you are unable to do so, we would like you to highly consider a new option, the option of switching plans to keep Benson open in lieu of South Ed. Here are some of the main points about our school. You'll notice that it's a bigger option that holds all students, would hold a daycare facility, the playgroup room, an extra room for when our township grows and expands. Benson would not need portables in the use of growth. South Ed would need portables for our children within the first year. A brighter, well-taken care of building, colorful and beautiful on the inside and out, offers flexible programming to meet individual students' needs, and is on municipal water. Let's take a look at some comparison photos to show how beautifully Benson stands out. This is a comparison of our halls. This is a comparison of our gymnasiums. Please note that our gym is
I can give you
larger,
just 1 minute, okay? Keep going, but 1 minute, okay? Thanks.
holding and filling more than 175 parents and our kindergarten classrooms. It has been stated that Benson has a higher FCI, and we as parents, staff, and community members feel this number is exaggerated and the repairs are cosmetic and unnecessary. Mr. Hobbs is on record saying the repair costs are to bring the schools up to as new condition as opposed to being unsafe, and goes on to add all of our schools are safe. What we see in Benson is a school we all enjoy, a beautiful school, a functioning school that has and is the pride of our community. We would like to show you an example of floor plans, and you have those, yes?
We have those. Okay, can you wrap it up pretty soon, please?
Absolutely.
The last one of the night.
So we would like to leave
Thank
you with the following photo.
Mhm.
Keep going. I took this photo while touring the school. This photo shows a classroom in South Ed where it rained out of the turned light fixtures while I was visiting. This is where you want us to send our children. Let's remember, parents want their children to go to the Upper Canada District School Board.
And that school is Benson Public School. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're so close to finishing.
I will open it up to comments or questions. Trustee Swan.
Through you, Chair, I just had a comment that in relation to the last slide, this was brought to my attention some months ago, and in fairness to South Ed, they have had some repairs done on their roof, and this is already slated for future repairs as soon as the weather is able. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Swan. Any other comments, questions? No. Seeing there are none, thank you very much. Before I get a motion from the trustees to adjourn, you know, it's an incredibly difficult and a complex process. I'm hoping that anyone that sits here and watches, or people watching at home, it's not quite as simple as it appears. The decision that the board makes is going to be a very difficult decision, and as Trustee Cram said, we're not going to make everyone happy. We know that. But we have a responsibility that we have to live up to. We are taking in all of the information, and I thank you very much for the information that was given to us tonight. The one thing there's two things that actually has come out of so far, and I know it's going to continue tomorrow night. Our communities are extremely proud of our schools. And the second thing that I think should make us all smile in light of everything that's happening is that we're all extremely proud of the work that our staff does with our young people every day to make a difference in their lives. I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board adjourn March 21st, 2017 at 9:45, moved by Trustee Wendy McPherson and seconded by Trustee Swan. Just a show of hands. Thank you very much. Safe travels, everyone. Thank you very much for being here, and thanks for your contributions.